Welcome to listening to stories on Kevin TV Audiobook channel, Chapter 2177, Dusk Intelligence. Chapter 2177, D-esque Intelligence. My name is Feng Yuxiang. As you can probably guess from my aura, I am a phoenix, and I am the young master's most loyal and #1 servant. Feng Yuxiang introduced herself first. Lan Yingying went next. I'm Lan Yingying. I am also a beast, a divine serpent, Yingzi. They're all your servants, Mu Shuelian asked Yuan. He shook his head and said, although Feng Yuxiang and Lan Yingying are bound to me through a contract, I don't see them as servants. They're my precious friends and companions. As for Yingzi, she's just following me around as a traveling companion. Is that so? I'm Mu Shuelian. Nice to meet you all. While they dined, Feng Yuxiang asked young master, if you don't know where the primordial realm is, why don't you just ask those guys from the celestial overlords? Yuan shook his head and sighed. No, I cannot get them involved. They will also try to persuade me not to go anyway. I'll probably have to find an information broker. Oh, right. There's the Dusk Intelligence. Although we're in the 8th heaven, they should also have a branch here, Feng Yuxiang sighed softly. I don't want to sound grim, but Zhao Hua's condition is worsening. Lately, she's been moving about more and more in her sleep, as though trapped in pain or lost in a nightmare she cannot wake from. I'm worried, Yuan nodded with a solemn face. That's why we cannot delay our trip to the primordial realm any longer. Once they finished eating and paid the bill, Yuan began asking around about the Dusk Intelligence. Sure enough, they also existed in the 8th heaven. Several teleportation formations later, Yuan found himself on the other side of the 8th heaven. Rather than being nestled within a bustling city, the Dusk Intelligence Yuan sought was currently hidden away in a remote city, isolated in the middle of nowhere. The atmosphere in this place was much more gloomy and suspicious, almost like Yuan had found himself in a dark alley. What is your purpose in this city? The guard of this city questioned Yuan when he got close to the gate. I'm here for the Dusk Intelligence, he said. The Dusk Intelligence, huh? The guard sighed. Is something wrong? Yuan asked. You see, the Dusk Intelligence in our city has temporarily closed its doors so nobody can enter. It has been like that for the last 4 years. Did they say their reason for closing? No, they just suddenly closed their doors. Yuan pondered for a moment before nodding. Thanks for letting me know, but I will take a look for myself anyway. Well, I can't stop you. However, the fee for entering this city is a spirit stone enough? Yuan showed the guard a single spirit stone. Yes. The guard nodded in a daze as he accepted the spirit stone. Yuan and Mu Shuelian entered the city shortly after and made their way to Dusk Intelligence's operating building. Sure enough, when they arrived, the doors to the building were closed, yet someone was sweeping the ground outside. Yuan calmly approached the young man cleaning and asked, I have some business with the Dusk Intelligence. The young man gave him a brief glance before he returned to focusing on the ground. Can't you see that the doors are closed? The Dusk Intelligence hasn't opened for 4 years. If it's closed, why are you cleaning it? Because I'm getting paid to do it. Yuan suddenly retrieved a black medallion from his spatial ring and showed it to the young man. Is the Dusk Intelligence still closed? Look here. The young man's throat stiffened at the sight of the black medallion in Yuan's grasp. Teat, that's the... Since you recognize this medallion, you must also be part of Dusk Intelligence. The young man immediately dropped his broom and bowed to Yuan. Please forgive me for my rudeness. I wasn't aware of your identity. Forget it. Is the Dusk Intelligence really closed? Yuan asked. Please, follow me. Without offering an explanation, the young man began walking away. Follow current novels on novelfire.net. Yuan silently followed him to the back of the building where another door was located. The young man knocked on the door. What is it? A cold voice resounded. The god of war has arrived. What? The door instantly swung open, and a middle-aged man walked out to confirm Yuan's identity. Welcome, God of War. Please. We have been anticipating your arrival. the middle-aged man said. You've been anticipating my arrival. Yuan raised an eyebrow at his wording. The middle-aged man nodded and said, You'll understand in a few minutes. Please, come inside. Yuan quietly nodded and entered the building. Once they were inside, the middle-aged man brought Yuan to the top floor where a teleportation formation existed. Not only that, it was already activated. What's this? Yuan questioned. The gateway to the Shadow Army's hideout, answered the middle-aged man without an ounce of hesitation in his voice. The commander is waiting for you. The commander, Dong Ye? That is correct. All right. Without hesitation, Yuan stepped onto the teleport formation and disappeared from the building. When Mushuelian tried to follow, the middle-aged man hastily stopped her. Wait a second. Who are you, and what is your relationship with the god of war? We weren't expecting extra company. I'm someone who will be carrying his child in the future. Mushuelian calmly responded. You must be his wife. I apologize. The middle-aged man hastily stepped aside, allowing Mushuelian access to the teleport formation. Without another word, Mushuelian stepped into the teleportation formation and vanished from the building. When she emerged moments later, she found herself standing in an entirely different city. Yuan was standing right in front of her, and he appeared to be in a daze as he looked at their surroundings. This place is the city of Xian, he mumbled, a sense of nostalgia washing over him. A minute later, before they could go anywhere, a figure appeared before them like a ghost. Welcome to the Shadow Army's hideout, my liege. Dong Ye greeted him with a Bow Chapter 217-8, Primordial Realms location. Dong Ye, it's been a while, Yuan returned the greeting with a warm smile. Indeed, it has. Dong Ye nodded. I heard that you've anticipated my arrival. Dong Ye smiled and said, I knew you'd come here sooner or later. Let's talk somewhere more private, shall we? Yuan nodded. As they walked through the empty streets of the city, Yuan asked, Did you create this place? No, I did not. As much as I loved the city I grew up in, I wouldn't do something as disrespectful as recreating it without your approval. Newest update provided by envelfire.net. Then, it was created by my liege, Dong Ye revealed, confirming what was in Yuan's mind. I see. Unfortunately, I still don't have all of my memories as the god of war. It's fine. You'll eventually recall everything. By the way, my liege, who is your new companion? I'm someone who will be carrying his child in the future. Mushuelian calmly responded, repeating what she said earlier. What? Dong Ye turned to look at Yuan with raised eyebrows. Yuan rubbed his eyes and sighed out loud. It's nothing like that. She's from the White Hell Barbarian tribe. The White Hell Barbarian tribe? No wonder she looks so familiar, Dong Yi remarked. You know them? How could I not? Someone from her tribe used to follow you around? I believe her name was Mu Hanyan. That's my grandmother, Mushuelian said. Unbelievable to think her granddaughter would be following you after so many years. Is she still alive? Dong Ye asked. She's still alive, Mushuelian said sometime later as they drew closer to the towering pagoda in the distance. Yuan remarked, This place is quiet. It's like a ghost town. Ah, that's because most of them are in training. One doesn't become part of our Shadow Army without extensive training, after all. How do you find these people? Yuan asked. From the streets, most of them are either homeless or orphans. I see, and how do you train them? Believe it or not, this place is where those who have reached the very end of their training curriculum come to train. Naturally, we cannot allow anyone we do not trust to enter, said Dong Ye. That's why we begin by cultivating their loyalty. Since most of them come from the streets, it isn't difficult to earn their trust. Still, we test them thoroughly for many years. Only when we are certain of their loyalty do we gradually reveal the truth, introducing them to the existence of the god of war and dispelling the false history woven by the previous celestial emperors. Once we are certain they will be able to handle it, we invest our full resources into them, raising their cultivation and instructing them in the Shadow Army's techniques. Yuan then asked, "What happens to those who fail?" "What do you think we do with them?" Dong Ye asked, with a mysterious smile on his face. "I doubt you would do something as stupid as disposing of the failures, right?" Yuan narrowed his gaze at Dong Ye. He immediately chuckled and said, "Of course not. I wouldn't have lived this long if I had done such audacious acts behind your back. Anyway, to answer your question, we simply set them free. I have the ability to eat memories, so I take away the memories of those who do not qualify to stay with us. However, it's not like we abandon them afterward either. We continue to support those who deserve it from the shadows, and those who do not, we simply let them go." "How does it work?" Yuan asked, his curiosity piqued. "For example, we have a young boy who failed his training quite early on. After taking away the necessary memories, we sent him to a sect we manage, where he can continue his life as a cultivator. Of course, it's not like we forced him on this path either. We confirm what they want to do in their life before we take their memories. As for the troublemakers who don't deserve our support, we just toss them back into the street, where they belong. I see it's not a perfect system, but nothing in this world is perfect. Most importantly, it helps people in need," Yuan mumbled with a satisfied smile on his face. Sometime later, they arrived at the pagoda. Invincible Heaven. Yuan read the grand name of the pagoda hanging by the entrance. Once inside, they were moved to the highest floor where a throne stood, untouched for millions of years, yet without a single speck of dust upon it. "Please, my liege." Dong Yi gestured toward the throne. Yuan stepped forward and seated himself upon it, his gaze sweeping through the open windows that offered an unobstructed view of every corner of the city. Mushuelian gazed silently at Yuan. The instant he sat upon the throne, a profound and innate aura of dominance surged from him, stirring within her an almost irresistible urge to bow in reverence. Tears streamed down Dong Ye's face, and in that moment he looked like a child who had finally been reunited with his parents after being lost for countless years. "Dong Ye, do you know why I visited the Dusk Intelligence?" Yuan suddenly asked. Dong Ye's expression immediately turned serious as he nodded. "Does it have something to do with the primordial realm?" Yuan nodded. "I want to know where it's located." Dong Ye then said, "Do you know of a place called the Primordial Chaos?" Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly at this familiar name. "Of course, just like White Hell and the Vanishing Valley, it's one of the forbidden zones. Don't tell me the primordial realm is in such a dangerous place?" "The Primordial Chaos is not only a forbidden zone, it's the most dangerous forbidden zone, so it's essentially the most dangerous place in the 9 heavens. Unfortunately, the primordial realm is inside that place. Fortunately, it's only at the outskirts," Dong Ye revealed. "How troublesome." Yuan sighed at this information. Chapter 2179. Primordial Chaos, End of Immortal Monarch's Return Arc. Chapter 2179, Primordial Chaos, End of Immortal Monarch's Return Arc. The Primordial Chaos was among the most perilous places in the 9 heavens, its unique environment cutting cultivators off from spiritual energy. Once their reserves were spent within its depths, they could not recover their strength until they escaped its boundaries. Though the primordial chaos was technically part of the 9 heavens, only its outermost edges lay within those boundaries. To venture any deeper was to step beyond the 9 heavens' protection and into the unknown. Moreover, the creatures that roamed within its depths were all at least of the God Ascension realm. Although the primordial chaos is a dangerous place, it's not the location that's the most worrying, but the Celestial Emperor's dogs that are protecting that place. Dong Ye sighed. It's constantly guarded around the clock by at least 10 God Ascension realm cultivators. 5 of them are at the 5th level God Ascension, and 2 are at the 7th level. 10 God Ascension experts, huh? That is indeed troublesome, Yuan sighed, wondering how he would get past 10 experts. Seeing his reaction, Dong Ye confidently patted his chest and declared, "Don't worry, my liege. I have spent the last few decades preparing for this exact purpose. The Shadow Army will distract the guards while you enter the primordial realm. Won't that alarm the Celestial Emperor, though? Even if I manage to get inside, getting out is my biggest issue, especially if you cause a scene right outside. Dong Yi smiled and said, "My liege, you're underestimating how much we've prepared for this moment. I know I said decades, but in reality we've been preparing for this moment since the primordial era. What do you think the members of the Shadow Army do when they complete their training? They infiltrate the Celestial Emperor's side as spies. Currently, 3 of the 10 experts guarding the primordial realm are our people, so even if we get rid of the other 7, we won't immediately alert the Celestial Emperor." "I see. And how long do you think I have inside the primordial realm?" Dong Yi pondered for a moment before speaking. "The guards at the primordial realm are replaced once every 1,000 years, and it has already been 800 years since the last replacement. So you have about 200 years before the Celestial Emperor is alerted." 200 years? That's more than enough time." Yuan nodded. "When would you like to depart for the primordial realm?" Dong Yi then asked, "As soon as possible." Dong Yi nodded and said, "In that case, please give me a few days to prepare for your escort." "All right then, I'll go prepare now if you'll excuse me." Dong Yi. Yuan suddenly stopped him. "My liege," Dong Yi turned around with a puzzled face. A warm smile spread across Yuan's face as he said, "Thank you for your efforts and sacrifices through all these years. When our battle is over, I swear upon my soul I will repay you." Dong Yi's eyes widened before he immediately dropped to his knees. "My liege, this worthless life of mine has been yours ever since you saved me from the streets and bestowed upon me a purpose. From that day onward, all I have ever sought is to repay you. So there's no need for you to say such words, even if you say that Yuan didn't know how to respond as tears flowed from Dong Yi's eyes." Dong Yi's past mirrored Tian Xian's growing up without a family. He spent much of his childhood living as a bandit. If it weren't for Tian Xian, Dong Yi would have been executed long ago. After Dong Yi departed, Yuan rose from the throne and walked to the window. As he drifted into thought, he suddenly became aware of a powerful gaze fixed upon him. "Who are you?" Yuan asked out loud. There was no response, and a moment later, the mysterious individual withdrew their gaze. Yuan narrowed his eyes toward the distant mountain, where a lone silhouette stood upon the peak, gazing unmistakably in his direction. However, this silhouette vanished like smoke before Yuan could do anything, disappearing like a ghost. Yuan felt no concern that the figure posed any danger, as he doubted Dong Yi would allow such a threat into this place. Yet curiosity stirred within him, for the individual's presence seemed even more formidable than Dong Yi's. When Dong Yi returned to his side a few days later, Yuan questioned him about the silhouette. A silhouette, you say?" Dong Yi swallowed nervously. Yuan looked at him with raised eyebrows. "What's with that reaction? Don't tell me that was an intruder?" "No, that's not possible." Dong Yi immediately dismissed that notion. He continued, "I have an idea who you're talking about, but I cannot disclose any information on that individual." Yuan became even more intrigued after hearing this chapter is P-dated by nv3lfear.net. "You can't tell me? So that person is even more important than me, huh?" Yuan remarked with a smile. Dong Yi's eyes widened at his statement, and he hastily responded, "Not a chance. There's nobody more important in my eyes than my liege. However, that person's circumstances are unique." After a moment of silence, Dong Yi sighed and said, "I can tell you this, though. My liege, you are very familiar with that person." "I am?" "Then why are they keeping their distance?" Dong Yi shook his head. "I am not sure myself, but I'm sure they'll approach you once they're ready. If you say so? In any case, have you finished with the preparations?" "Yes, we can leave for the primordial realm at your command." "Let's leave now. Then please follow me." Yuan nodded and followed Dong Yi away. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Shadow Army's hideout, the silhouette mumbled in a longing tone. Tianyang. Sometime later, Dong Ye led Yuan to their destination where a carriage awaited them. Yuan's brows rose, not at the carriage itself, but at the flag it bore. "Isn't that the Celestial Family's flag?" he remarked. Chapter 218, Entering the Primordial Realm. Chapter 218, Entering the Primordial Realm. It is the Celestial Family's flag, Dong Yi confirmed with a calm smile on his face. This way we'll be able to approach the primordial realm without being stopped. Impersonating the Celestial Family, huh? Most people wouldn't even dream of doing something like this. Yuan chuckled. Not even madmen would dare impersonate the Celestial Family, the most powerful clan in the 9 heavens. For those bold enough to try, death would be the least of their concerns. However, offending the Celestial Emperor was the Shadow Army's specialty. Greetings to the God of War, aside from the carriage. There was a group of God Ascension experts there. They will not only escort you to the primordial realm, but will also act as a distraction, Dong Ye said. It is an honor to finally be of assistance to the God of War, they all said, bowing to him. Yuan acknowledged with a nod. I'll be relying on you guys. After Yuan and Mu Shuelian stepped into the carriage, Dong Ye swallowed an appearance-altering pill before taking his place at the front as the rider. Moments later, they left the hideout and appeared in a location that was entirely different from the building Yuan had entered from. Then, without hesitation, they soared toward the sky, entering the starry sky hours later. My liege, it'll take 2 years just to get there, even at our speed, so make yourself comfortable, Dong Yi said. All right, Yuan retrieved the Mystic Sword tablet to study it. As for Mu Shuelian, she spent most of her time staring out the window with a constant look of wonder, as this was her first time entering the starry sky. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, almost 2 years have passed. My liege, I should have probably asked you this sooner, but you have the 4 ancient seals, correct? I do. We're almost at our destination, so if you could assemble the ancient seals now so you don't have to do it later, I have to assemble the seals. The next moment, Yuan retrieved the 4 ancient seals and examined them closely. At first glance, each appeared whole on its own, yet when placed side by side, it became clear. They were fragments meant to fit together into a greater whole. You have assembled the 4 ancient seals, creating an ancient key. Despite its name, the ancient key did not resemble a key at all. If anything, it looked like a large seal stamp. A month later, Dong Yi's voice resounded. My liege, we're almost at the primordial chaos. Please prepare yourself. A few minutes later, Yuan realized that the spiritual energy in the air had suddenly vanished. You have discovered primordial chaos. You have entered primordial chaos for cultivators. A world devoid of spiritual energy was no different from fish stranded without water, without spiritual energy. Once a cultivator's reserves were depleted, their dantian would gradually wither, and given enough time, the cultivator themselves would perish. I cannot sense any spiritual energy. Mu Shuelian was not used to such an environment, and instinctively began to panic. As for Yuan, chaotic dragon core has activated. You have begun refining chaotic essence. Though the primordial chaos was devoid of spiritual energy, it was anything but empty, and it brimmed with chaotic essence in overwhelming abundance. Yingzi emerged from his shadow after sensing the familiar energy. This is chaotic essence, she remarked after quickly recognizing it. She looked at Yuan and questioned, Have we returned to the primal expanse? He shook his head and explained, No, we're still in the 9 heavens. Yingzi walked to the window and stared outside. But this feeling... It's the same as the primal expanse, she muttered. Meanwhile, somewhere in the outer reaches of the primordial chaos, 10 God Ascension Realm experts sat in silent cultivation, encircling a massive black metal door that loomed alone in the desolate expanse. However, since there was no spiritual energy for them to absorb, these God Ascension cultivators were merely doing mental cultivation and not actually cultivating. Suddenly, the expert at the 7th level of God Ascension opened his eyes and spoke out loud. We have company. The other 9 opened their eyes at his words, that flag, the Celestial Family. Was there an inspection scheduled for today? Official source is novifvire.net. The experts showed no alarm at the site, for the celestial family frequently came to inspect the primordial realm. It might be a surprise inspection. I'll go speak with them, said one of the fifth-level God Ascension experts as he rose to his feet and approached the carriage. Sometime later, the cultivator returned and said, "It's a surprise inspection. Prepare to greet the celestial family. What a pain in the ass." One of them complained in a low voice. Soon all 10 of them left their post and approached the carriage. "We greet the celestial family." However, in response, the experts guarding the carriage suddenly encircled them. "What is the meaning of this?" one of them questioned with a deep frown. Still concealed by his disguise, Dong Ye suddenly drew out a treasure and activated it without warning. In the next instant, a massive barrier materialized, enclosing everyone within its confines. It's an ambush. After confirming the guards were trapped, Dong Ye turned to the carriage and said, "My liege, you're good to go. We'll take care of things from here." Yuan and Mu Shuelian emerged from the carriage the next moment and immediately flew toward the metal black door in the distance. They're here for the primordial realm. Even upon realizing this, the guards did not panic. Instead, mocking laughter erupted from them. "Ha ha, what a futile effort without the ancient key. Not even a cultivation god can open the primordial realm." But the moment they saw Yuan draw forth the ancient key, their laughter died instantly, their faces twisting into shock and horror. Why does he have the ancient key? Impossible. We must stop him from opening the primordial realm. The guards erupted with power at once, unleashing the full extent of their cultivation without hesitation. "Kill them," Dong Yi's commanding voice resounded the next moment. Chapter 2181. Inside the primordial realm, upon hearing Dong Yi's command, the Shadow Army began its fight with the guards of the primordial realm. "We cannot let that crazy bastard open the primordial realm and let the criminals inside loose." The guards fought with desperate ferocity, as though not only their own lives but the lives of their families hung in the balance. The primordial realm housed countless dangerous and heinous criminals, and none of them dared even to imagine what would happen if these criminals were set free in the 9 heavens. Meanwhile, upon reaching the entrance of the primordial realm, Yuan poured his spiritual energy into the ancient key, activating it. Then, without the slightest hesitation, he drove it into the waiting keyhole. The sealed doors opened, causing the entire ground to tremble. "Let's go." Yuan entered the primordial realm with Mu Shuelian following behind. Once Yuan and Mu Shuelian's figures disappeared into the primordial realm, the doors closed again. What? They didn't fully open the primordial realm and instead went inside. The guards were left dumbfounded by the unexpected development, as they thought Yuan was there to release the criminals. "Who the hell are you bastards, and what is your goal here? Do you have any idea what you've done?" The 7th-level God Ascension expert roared at Dong Yi, his opponent. "We are the Shadow Army, and we are here to piss off the Celestial Emperor." Dong Yi laughed out loud. "The evil god's Shadow Army." The guards instantly recognized their infamous name. "Ha! Kill us then. Let's see what will happen afterward." Dong Yi shook his head and said, "Although I told them to kill you guys, we're not really going to kill you. Do you think we aren't aware that the Celestial Emperor is tracking your lives with a life tablet? And that if we kill you, it would immediately alert him? We won't kill you for now, but we will destroy your physical body in case you try anything." In the middle of their fight, 3 of the guards, who were Shadow Army spies, suddenly betrayed the other 7. "What the fuck are you 3 doing? They must be spies. Do you think you'll get away with this?" With the betrayal and the Shadow Army's overwhelming might, the fight ended in the blink of an eye. The Shadow Army destroyed the guards' physical bodies, but left their souls alone so that the life tablet tracking their lives wouldn't activate. "Great job, everyone. However, we're far from done," said Dong Yi. He proceeded to use his memory-stealing abilities on the guards, stealing their identities. The celestial family does random inspections, and we must be ready for them when that happens, he said afterward. Yes, Commander. Meanwhile, Yuan and Mujuelian appeared inside the primordial realm. What is this place? Mujuelian murmured, her eyes wide with curiosity and disbelief as she studied their surroundings. Above them stretched a pitch-black sky, where streaks of crimson lightning slithered like serpents through the void. The land was even more dreadful, a desolate plain of scorched earth, fractured with countless cracks as though it bore the aftermath of an ancient apocalypse. Yet, despite the dark skies, the red lightning appeared frequently enough to constantly illuminate the world. Cough, cough, Mujuelian suddenly started coughing. The air outside was already awful, but in here it's even worse. The atmosphere feels suffocating, she exclaimed, raising her hands to cover her mouth. Yuan faced her and shrugged. I suggested you not follow me in here earlier, but you wanted to be stubborn. He looked at the sky and sighed, but this place is definitely very tragic. Not only does this place lack spiritual energy, but the chaotic essence is at least 10 times denser than outside. There's no way any cultivator can survive in this environment. Why did you want to come here? Yuan shook his head and said, No, there are definitely people living in here. I can sense someone not too far away from us. You're using divine sense. Aren't you worried that you'll exhaust your spiritual energy? You can't replenish it in this place, after all, Mujuelian asked. I don't have any issues replenishing my spiritual energy since I can refine the chaotic essence in this place. Ah, chaotic essence is what you're sensing right now, and it cannot be refined by humans. As Lord Shiva said, you are not human. Mujuelian stared at him with a dumbfounded face. So what's next? She asked a moment later. Ask for directions, he answered, his gaze shifting toward the presence he had already sensed. Just as Yuan began to take flight, Mujuelian suddenly shouted, Wait! Yuan turned around to see Mujuelian glaring at him from the ground. Oh, right. You cannot replenish your spiritual energy, so it'd be wise to save it for when you truly need it. Yuan made a gesture toward her figure, and the next moment, Mujuelian's body lifted off the ground and flew beside him. Thank you, she said. Yuan silently nodded before flying away with Mujuelian. They flew for hours without encountering so much as a single tree or any sign of life at all, newest update provided by Novel Fear. Sometime later, Yuan halted before a half-destroyed mountain, its upper half completely gone, while the remaining portion was riddled with cracks as though it might collapse into ruin at any moment. Wait here. Yuan instructed Mujuelian before striding toward the lone cave in the distance. When he was halfway there, a silhouette emerged from its depths. When the figure finally stepped out of the cave, it was revealed to be a gaunt, middle-aged man. His limbs were so frail and thin they seemed as though they might snap under the mere weight of his own stance. Yet his eyes were filled with life and killing intent. Seeing Yuan's healthy appearance, the man frowned and said, There's nothing for you to take here. Yuan responded with a calm smile. I'm just here for directions. Chapter 2182, Inside the Primordial Realm. 2. You're here to ask for directions? The skinny man wore a dumbfounded look on his face after hearing Yuan's words. He focused on Yuan's appearance again. In the primordial realm, due to its chaotic environment, having a healthy appearance was a privilege accessible only to the most powerful individuals and families, but what truly set Yuan apart from the ordinary dwellers of the primordial realm was the vast reservoir of spiritual energy within him. Though he tried to conceal it, those who had long been starved of such energy could instinctively sense its presence. Yet a privileged background did not mean one was above resorting to robbery. In the primordial realm, where resources were scarce and the law of the jungle reigned supreme, even the lofty could be driven to desperate means. In fact, it was usually the most powerful individuals who took advantage of their privilege. Who are you looking for? The Asura clan, Yuan calmly answered. The man's eyes widened in shock and disbelief at the mention of the Asura clan, as though he had just laid eyes on a ghost. You're seeking the Asura clan? Get lost. How dare you toy with me? The man roared, slashing the air with his arm. Yuan tilted his head, his expression puzzled. What makes you think I'm joking? I'm being serious. Nonsense. Nobody in this world would willingly seek out the Asura clan, not even the insane. I'm not insane, but I am seriously looking for the Asura clan. Yuan shrugged. No, I don't know why you're looking for the Asura clan, but I want no involvement. Without another word, the skinny man turned around and walked back inside the cave, his figure disappearing into the darkness. It seems finding the Asura clan will take more effort than I expected. Yuan sighed. He turned to leave, heading back toward Mushuelian. But after only a few steps, he halted, a strange sensation prickling across his back, forcing him to turn around. When Yuan turned, he found the skinny man, who had vanished into the cave, now standing behind him, a dagger pressed firmly against his back. What is the meaning of this? Yuan asked, his voice calm and steady. Impossible, the man muttered, disbelief etched across his face. Ignoring Yuan's words, he lashed out again, this time with even greater force. However, Yuan had no intention of simply standing still, even if the strike posed no threat to him. In a swift motion, he twisted his body, extended his arm, and clamped his hand firmly around the man's neck, lifting him into the air. How? You're just a mere true immortal, the skinny man shouted. Despite his frail appearance, he was a cultivator at the first level of God Ascension. In his mind, it was impossible for an immortal to withstand his strike. I don't think I have done anything deserving of this backstab, Yuan said. After snapping out of his daze, the skinny man laughed out loud. You speak like someone from the outside. This is the primordial realm. Do I need any reason to attack someone so defenseless? Yuan narrowed his eyes and said, I'll give you a chance to live. Tell me where I can find the Asura clan, and I'll spare your life for your offense. The man opened his mouth, not to speak, but to spit. Hack too, he snarled, hurling the glob straight at Yuan's face. Yuan calmly blocked the spit with spiritual energy. Ha ha ha, what a waste of spiritual energy. Without a word, Yuan clenched his fist, crushing the man's neck. However, the man wasn't dead yet. As a God Ascension cultivator, unless Yuan destroyed his soul, he would remain alive. Even so, in the primordial realm, where cultivation resources were almost non-existent, reconstructing a body was impossible for the weak. Yuan nonchalantly tossed the body on the ground and returned to Mushuelian's side. Quite ruthless, she remarked. He struck first, Yuan replied calmly. Besides, most who dwell in this realm are criminals deserving of death. So what now? The Reetful source is Novi FireNet. Look for someone else who can help us. Yuan looked around and continued a moment later. Unfortunately, I don't sense anyone else nearby, so we can only wander around until we encounter someone. After picking up Mushuelian, Yuan flew away and continued their search. Although that man was weak for a God Ascension cultivator, he still had some power in him. The primordial realm hasn't opened since the primordial era, so how did that man cultivate, much less reach God Ascension? Yuan pondered as they traveled. He couldn't fathom how cultivators survive in this environment. Also, there was the existence of exiles, people who are allowed outside for a chance of freedom through the Supreme Heaven's legacy. Sometime later, Yuan stopped moving when he noticed a drastic change in the atmosphere. Do you sense that too? Mushuelian asked with her brows slightly raised. He nodded. Something is about to happen, Yuan murmured, tilting his head toward the blackened sky, where the lightning serpents were converging upon a single point. Moments later, he could sense several presences appearing from a distance, all of them rushing in their direction. People are coming. A few minutes later, 4 cultivators appeared before Yuan and Mushuelian. Unlike the skinny man they previously encountered, these 4 cultivators appeared a little healthier. 2 of them were true immortals, while the other 2 were at the first and second levels of God Ascension. Scram, if you don't want to die, said the second-level God Ascension cultivator. The why don't you scram, said the other God Ascension cultivator. The two true immortals didn't say anything, but it was clear they also had no intention of leaving. "I will not warn you again," said the second-level God Ascension Cultivator. "Let's not be too greedy. There are only a few of us here, so we can share it. Even if you fight and defeat us all, you might lose more than you gain," said one of the true immortals. The second-level God Ascension Cultivator frowned and fell silent to ponder. Chapter 2183, Inside the Primordial Realm 3, as the second-level God Ascension Cultivator pondered, his gaze fell upon Yuan and Mushwelian. Although Yuan was only a true immortal, his appearance and abundant spiritual energy implied that he came from a powerful family. However, what truly surprised him was Mushwelian's existence. There were many God Ascension Realm cultivators within the Primordial Realm, but those who had as much spiritual energy as Mushwelian were incredibly rare, including those with a much higher cultivation than hers. Besides that white-haired woman, I can defeat the others, but it'll exhaust too much energy. Since there are only a few of us, there's no need to risk it. The second-level God Ascension Cultivator didn't acknowledge it openly, but he decided not to chase the others away. Minutes later, the massed lightning within the clouds erupted, unleashing a single devastating bolt that descended like a heavenly judgment. The bolt was so intense it ripped through the very fabric of space, leaving behind a rift that seethed with turbulent spiritual energy. Seeing this, the cultivators immediately began absorbing the spiritual energy, replenishing what little reserve they had left. Yuan and Mushwelian watched with intrigue as they'd never seen anything like this before. So this is why that cultivator wanted everyone else to leave, Yuan thought to himself, finally understanding the situation. However, he still had questions, such as where the spiritual energy was coming from. Why aren't those two cultivating and just watching? Are they mocking us? The cultivators wondered when they realized Yuan and Mushwelian were idling not far away. They might attack us while we're cultivating. Worried that Yuan and Mushwelian might attack out of nowhere, the cultivators remained vigilant. A few minutes later, Yuan suddenly spoke, startling the others. "Hey, I have a question. Do you know where I can find the Asura clan?" The cultivators snapped their heads toward Yuan, their faces frozen in disbelief. Yet after a brief silence, they quickly averted their gazes, acting as though they had never heard his words at all. Seeing this, Yuan started to absorb the spiritual energy from the rift at a terrifying rate, shocking the cultivators. What the hell is that insane absorption rate? At this rate, he'll absorb all of the spiritual energy in minutes. They cried inwardly. "If nobody answers, I will continue to absorb the spiritual energy," Yuan said. "I will answer," one of the true immortals hastily said. However, before he could answer Yuan's question, a powerful presence emerged nearby, swiftly closing in on their location. Even before the figure came into view, an aggressive voice thundered through the air. "If anyone still dares to absorb that spiritual energy after this warning, I'll skin you alive when I get there in a minute. This presence, it's a 5th-level God Ascension Cultivator." Everyone there subconsciously halted, absorbing the spiritual energy, and the true immortals even prepared to flee, as this 5th-level God Ascension Cultivator seemed to have plenty of spiritual energy just by how he was willing to use voice transmission. "Before you leave, can you answer my question?" Yuan said, snapping them out of their daze. "Follow current news on novelfire.net. S-screw-you. If I cannot acquire any more spiritual energy, what's the point of answering you and offending the Asura clan?" Then the true immortal turned around and flew away. The other true immortal also left silently. As for the God Ascension cultivators, they exchanged glances before turning to look at Mushwelian and said, "If the three of us worked together, we might be able to deal with this bastard." Mushwelian raised an eyebrow and asked, "Why should I work with you? This is your problem, not mine." The second-level God Ascension Cultivator frowned and responded, "Why the hell are you here, if not for this spiritual energy? We were just passing by when this phenomenon happened." "I don't need the spiritual energy anyway," she calmly responded. You don't need the spiritual energy? Not just the second-level God Ascension cultivator, but even the other guy trembled in anger after hearing her words. In the primordial realm, nearly every cultivator was starved for spiritual energy. For someone to claim they had no need of it was like boasting of never needing food because they are always full and have never starved before. While standing before the homeless, gaunt with hunger, the God Ascension cultivators wanted to tear Muse Schwellian apart after hearing her words, but they controlled themselves as they would gain nothing from it, not to mention the incoming threat. If you want the spiritual energy, you can fight for it. Without hesitation, the second-level God Ascension cultivator began absorbing the spiritual energy again. Seeing this, the other cultivator also followed, courting death. The fifth-level God Ascension cultivator arrived at the scene a few minutes later. Upon his arrival, he immediately unleashed a powerful martial technique at the two who ignored his warning. This crazy bastard. The two cultivators hastily stopped their cultivation to block the incoming attack. Fuck, my spiritual energy. While they were able to block the attack properly, it had consumed more spiritual energy than what they had absorbed from the rift. Ha ha ha, this is what you fools get for defying my warning. Now, die for your sins. The fifth-level God Ascension cultivator laughed madly as he continued his assault on the other two. Damn it! I'm not going to waste my spiritual energy on a madman. It's not worth it. The second-level God Ascension cultivator did not hesitate to run away. Seeing this, the first-level God Ascension cultivator also fled. The fifth-level God Ascension cultivator didn't chase after them. He turned to look at Yuan and Muse Schwellian for a brief moment before ignoring them to absorb the spiritual energy from the rift. However, Yuan also started absorbing the spiritual energy the very next moment. What the fuck do you think you're doing, you little brat? Yuan responded with a calm smile. If you tell me where I can find the Asura clan, I'll let you have all of the spiritual energy here. If not, I don't mind fighting to the death. Chapter 2184, Asura clan's location. The man's expression darkened after hearing the name Asura clan. What did you just say? The Asura clan? Are you insane? How dare you utter their name before me? You must be trying to get me killed. Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly and responded. What are you so afraid of? You're not the first person I've asked about the Asura clan. But you all have the same terrified reaction, almost as if you'll die just for talking about them. What nonsense are you spouting? Anyone living in this forsaken world would tremble at their name unless you're not from the primordial realm? No, that can't be. For a brief moment, the man considered the possibility that Yuan had come from the outside, but he quickly dismissed the thought as impossible. After all, the primordial realm has been closed since the primordial realm. So what if I am from the outside world? Yuan suddenly said. The man's eyes widened with shock and disbelief. You? Are you serious? The man swallowed nervously as he couldn't imagine what sort of heinous crime Yuan had committed to force the Celestial Emperor to throw him in an abandoned prison like the primordial realm. Yuan silently nodded in acknowledgement. No wonder his appearance is so clean, but he's only a true immortal. What could he have done to? No, I shouldn't involve myself in his business. He's too dangerous. Why are you looking for the Asura clan? The man then asked. I just have some business with them. Why does it matter to you? The man frowned and said, I want no involvement in your search for the Asura clan if you're trying to fight them. If they kill you and discover I was the one who pointed you their way, I'll be as good as dead myself. Is that why everyone was afraid to tell me the directions? Because they're afraid that I might fight them? Yuan wondered to himself. He then smiled and said, Don't worry, I'm not going to fight them. The man pondered for a moment before pointing toward the south and saying, You can find the Asura clan at the border of the Spirit Tree. Spirit Tree, right? Thanks for the information. Yuan stopped absorbing the spiritual energy. Before I leave, I have one more question. Where is the nearest city? The man then pointed west and said, There's one a week away in that direction. Yuan didn't linger and left with Mu Shuelian shortly after. Once Yuan left, the man sighed in relief. For the first time since the primordial era, someone new has been tossed inside the primordial realm. I can only hope this is just a one-time event. The man worried over the implications. If the current celestial emperor were to make use of the primordial realm again, it could plunge the realm into chaos, disrupting the fragile society and norms its residents had managed to build through many eras. Let's not overthink it and hurry up and consume the spiritual energy before someone else comes. Meanwhile, Yuan and Mu Shuelian sped toward the nearest city, arriving at their destination in under a day of travel. Although the man said it would take a week, he was talking about walking distance since cultivators in the primordial realm only fly when it's an emergency, as it would be a waste. Once they arrived in the city, Yuan used his divine sense to scan the city. He wanted to look for a teleport formation, but he didn't find one even after searching the entire city. "Looks like we will have to go to another city," Yuan said to Mu Shuelian. Yuan shifted his attention to a nearby pedestrian who was a young man and a pure mortal. "Hey, can I ask you a question?" The young man turned to face Yuan, and the instant he saw his appearance, shock overtook his face. "How may this lowly one serve you?" he cried, dropping to his knees and kowtowing before Yuan raised his eyebrows in a puzzled manner at the young man's unexpected reaction and questioned, "Do you recognize me?" The young man, not daring to raise his head, responded, "No, I do not." "Then why are you reacting like that?" "Because you are a cultivator." "He's probably like that because cultivators are rare in the primordial realm. In a world where spiritual energy rarely exists, I highly doubt many would even attempt to become one," Yuning remarked. "That makes sense," Yuan mumbled, finding Yuning's words very logical. "Anyway, I would like to ask you, do you know which city has a teleport formation?" he then asked the young man. What?" the young man responded in a confused tone, almost as if he'd never heard of this term. "I don't think teleport formations exist in this world," Yuning suddenly said. "If you think about it, teleport formations can only be activated with spiritual energy. Even if they somehow manage to activate it, they'll still need spiritual energy to teleport." Yuan became speechless when he realized that he'd overlooked this fact. Senior Immortal? The young man spoke when Yuan didn't say anything for some time. Yuan snapped out of his daze and asked, "Then do you know how far away the spirit tree is?" "The legendary spirit tree, where only the most powerful cultivators go." "I'm sorry, while I have heard of its name, I don't know where it's located." "I reckon that only powerful cultivators will know, since it's not something us ordinary mortals even dream of." "Is that so?" Yuan pondered for a moment before speaking again. "Hey, I have another favor. Can you tell me more about this world? I'll treat you to a meal for your assistance." "Really?" Yuan nodded. "I'll even let you choose the restaurant. Let's talk while we eat, okay?" "Rise, maut, lace, rightpers, in not vafura ametet." After a moment of awkward silence, the young man asked, "Is it okay for me to stand up now? Of course you don't need to be so formal either. Just treat me like a friendly neighbor or something," Yuan said. Chapter 218.5 Primordial Realms 3 Region. "I have never met a cultivator as kind as you, senior brother," said the young man as he led Yuan to a nearby restaurant. "Are you sure you want to eat at this place?" Yuan asked with a raised eyebrow after seeing the rundown building the young man had brought him to. "Don't let its crummy appearance fool you, senior brother. This shop has some of the best noodles in this city, and the cities nearby." "All right, I'll trust you." Yuan scanned the restaurant with his divine sense just in case the young man was luring him into a trap. Of course, he wasn't worried about being ambushed in the slightest. Fortunately, the restaurant was clear and he found nothing suspicious. Once they were seated inside, the young man ordered for them. "Boss, let me get 3 large bowls of noodles with meat dumplings on the way," said the old man working behind the counter. "Now, what did you want to know about this world?" "I may look young, but I'm quite knowledgeable, if I may say so myself. I even know some things that only cultivators would know," said the young man in a boastful tone. "You see, I live in a secluded part of this world and only recently began to expand my views, so I don't know much about the situation of the rest of the world. In that case, should I tell you what I know about our world? Yuan nodded. Very well, the young man began. As you likely already know, we now live in the primordial realm, a place once used to imprison criminals during the primordial era. At first, the criminals fought endlessly among themselves, but after tens of thousands of years of bloodshed, they came to realize they might never leave. So they ceased their battles, and instead turned their efforts toward building a society of their own. Now, the primordial realm is controlled by four powerful backgrounds: the Zhao family, chaotic sect, the Inferno alchemists, and the Asura clan. Not only do they each rule over the majority of the primordial realm, but they are absolute powers that even cultivators cannot defy, especially the Asura clan. Despite having the smallest population amongst the powerhouses, the Asura clan is undoubtedly the strongest in the primordial realm. With that said, the primordial realm is split into three regions: the realm of chaos, ruled by the chaotic sect; Zhao province, ruled by the Zhao family. The final region is the land of Inferno, ruled by the Inferno alchemists. Although the Asura clan is a powerhouse, they only rule a small area of the primordial realm. However, the place they rule is arguably the most important area in this entire world. The spirit tree? Yuan said. The young man nodded and elaborated. The spirit tree is the only place in this world that lets cultivators, well, cultivate. Of course, there are the spiritual rifts, but those are rare and random, so cultivators cannot rely on them. Spiritual rifts? Is that when lightning strikes and tears through space, releasing spiritual energy? Yuan asked. Yes, that's what I heard. Unfortunately, I have never personally witnessed it, even with my 20 years of experience. Yuan then asked, how spacious is the primordial realm? Let's say I want to get to the other side of the world. How long would that take? The young man pondered for a moment before responding. I don't think the primordial realm is that big. From what I've heard through traveling merchants, it could take up to 10 years to travel around the world on foot, so it's probably not that big for cultivators who can fly. Only 10 years on foot? The primordial realm is quite small then. By the way, which region are we currently in? The realm of chaos? I see. The owner of the restaurant approached the table with their noodles shortly after. The latest episodes are on the novelfire.net. What do you think? The young man asked. It's actually delicious. What is this meat? I have never tasted anything like this before, Yuan remarked, as he gazed at the meat dumplings. Before the young man could respond, Yingzi suddenly emerged from Yuan's shadow. Whoa! The young man was startled by Yingzi's sudden appearance and stared at her beautiful face with a dazed look. What's up? Yuan looked at her. Yingzi pointed at the meat dumpling and said, I want to taste it. Go ahead. Yuan handed her a dumpling. After tasting the meat, she responded, As I thought, I have tasted this meat before. It's from a common beast in the primal expanse. What really? Yuan's eyes widened at this information. Yingzi nodded. I am certain. I have feasted on them a few times before. Yuan fell silent to ponder the implications. Beings from the primal expanse can be found in the primordial realm? Just what is this place, anyway? He wondered inwardly. Anyway, let's order some more. I won't be satisfied with just one. Yuan gestured at the owner and said, I want 20 more of this. To 20? The old man's eyes widened. I'll need you to pay up front if you're going to order that much food. Yuan nodded. How much? Including the 3 bowls I've already served, 23 small chaos coins. The old man frowned at Yuan's reaction and said, You don't have the money? Wait, just a minute. Yuan turned to the young man and asked, Do you have any money on you? What? Don't tell me you actually don't have any money? Then why did you say you'll treat me? The young man exclaimed. I do have money. I just don't think they'll work here since I have never heard of chaos coins. Each region has their own currency, but it can be used in other regions, said the young man. Yuan retrieved some gold coins and showed them to the young man. What about this? It's gold coins? Gold coins? That's ancient currency, the young man exclaimed, his eyes wide with disbelief. Chapter 2186, a single gold coin. Is that real? The young man stammered after hearing it was a gold coin. Most of the earliest people cast into the primordial realm had arrived empty-handed, but in the chaos, a few managed to smuggle in their treasures and valuables. As a result, items like gold coins, spirit stones, and other treasures did exist in the primordial realm, but they were exceedingly rare and priceless. This was especially true, given that many eras had passed since the primordial era, and most of such valuables had long since been claimed by the powerful or lost to the ravages of time. Of course it's real, Yuan nodded. Anyway, can I pay with this? Pay with the gold coin. I apologize for my language, but are you insane? A single one of those coins can turn a poor family into a rich one. If you're going to use that gold coin to buy noodles, I'd rather you give me the gold coin and I pay for the noodles for you. Hell, I'll even go into debt to pay for your noodles, said the young man, making his voice as low as possible, even though they were the only customers inside the restaurant. Yuan smiled and said, "Let's do that then." He placed the gold coin on the table and calmly slid it in front of the young man. Google Seer Novifier. Net. The young man didn't immediately accept the coin and could only stare at it with a dazed face. He couldn't comprehend how Yuan could casually give away such a precious item. Am I being scammed right now? He wondered inwardly. However, the possibility of a cultivator scamming a mortal for some noodles was just as inconceivable. Whatever. Even if I might go broke, I'm willing to take the risk. After a moment of hesitation, the young man grabbed the gold coin and immediately put it inside his pocket. Sorry for the delay, owner. I'll pay for the noodles right now. The young man got up from the table and went to pay the old man. Is that your friend? The old man asked, as he accepted the money, a slight frown on his face. Something like that. The old man shook his head and sighed. He's sketchy. Don't get involved with people like him. I'm warning you because you're a regular at my restaurant. Thank you for the advice. The young man didn't argue and returned to the table to wait for the food. Do you have any more coins? I'd like to take a look at one. Yuan suddenly asked, Here, it's my last coin. The young man handed Yuan a small black coin with a hint of purple mixed within, its surface gleaming with a crystal-like sheen. Yuan studied it closely, though the material and design were unfamiliar to him. Yingzi moved her head closer to the coin and said, This is made of shadow crystals. What? You also recognize this material? Yuan looked at her with surprise. She nodded and said, Shadow crystals are rare resources found only in places untouched by light. My homeland had them in abundance. They are similar to spirit stones, but contain chaotic essence instead, and they're using such rare materials to make coins to use as currency. Well, I guess it doesn't really hold any value to cultivators since they cannot cultivate chaotic essence. Thanks. Yuan handed the coin back to the young man before asking, Is there a place where I can sell some gold coins? It's not convenient to travel without money. The young man pondered for a moment before responding. Our city is quite small and poor, so you won't find anyone able to buy them here. How many are you trying to sell? A handful? A hand? You have that many? But you don't have a single chaos coin? That doesn't make any sense. If the young man knew Yuan actually had tens of millions of gold coins in his possession, not even the heavens would be able to predict his reaction. I came from a very, very seclusive place. Yuan gave a random but somewhat believable excuse. In fact, I am currently traveling the world and gaining experience for a trial, and my family didn't give me any money when I left. A trial? Cultivators are truly something else. If only I could become one, too. Unfortunately, I was born into an ordinary family, and I am not desperate enough to risk my life for glory. Yuan smiled faintly and said, To become a cultivator in an environment like this, I can hardly imagine how one could even begin the path without the fortune of a privileged birth. Truly, the young man sighed. forget spiritual energy even if someone were granted an endless supply. Most couldn't so much as obtain a cultivation technique. Sometime later, Yuan asked, "Since you don't know where the spirit tree is located, do you know someone who does? You can try the first city. Their city is the most prosperous in the realm of chaos, and it's where most cultivators gather. Oh, you can probably sell your gold coins there as well. First city? What is the name of this city?" Yuan then asked, "The seventh city." "What an odd naming choice. How many cities are in this region?" he asked further. "7," the young man swiftly replied. "Each city is ranked according to its value, and that rank becomes its name. As such, the names can change. So this is the worst city, huh? Only by a small margin. Besides the top 3 cities, the disparity between each city isn't as much as you imagine." The noodles began arriving shortly later, quickly filling the table. "You're not going to eat?" Yuan asked when the young man didn't touch the noodles. "A single bowl is enough to keep me going for an entire day." "1 bowl for an entire day? No wonder you're so skinny." "What can I do when that's all I can afford? I'm used to it by now anyway," he said with a bittersweet smile. "Well, today is a special day, so eat until you're full," said Yuan. "If you say so." The young man nodded and reached for a bowl. Chapter 2187, a single gold coin. 2. Although there were 20 bowls of noodles, the group finished them in less than half an hour. "Wow, I have never been this full before," said the young man as he patted his stomach, which was noticeably rounder. "Will you be heading to the first city immediately?" he then asked. Yuan nodded. "Yes, that's my intention." The young man fell silent, almost as if pondering something. Seeing his expression, Yuan asked, "What's on your mind?" "Well, I was just wondering if I could follow you to the first city. After all, I won't be able to sell the gold coin you gave me in this city, and it's too dangerous to travel alone." "Of course, I understand if you refuse," Yuan smiled and said. "I don't mind. In fact, we can sell the gold coins together. After all, I am not familiar with the first city. I have never been to the first city either, so I don't think I'll be of much help there. However, I'll still try my best." "Sure. Before we depart, I need to return home and let my family know I'll be gone for a long time," the young man said. "You won't be gone for too long. It'll take a few days at most." The young man wore a puzzled look on his face and said, "What? But the first city isn't close to our city. It'll take at least a few months just to get there." Yuan chuckled and replied, "That may be the case if we walked there. I intend to fly there. Of course I'll take you with me." "Fly? You can actually fly?" The young man stared at him with awe. "I sure can. That's amazing. I'll go home right now to let my family know." Since he had nothing else to do, Yuan followed the young man to his home. "Mother, father, I'm going to leave this city for a few days, a few weeks at most, to seize an opportunity." "Where are you going?" asked the mother. "The first city. What? Are you sure that's at least 2 months away, not including the time it'll take you to come back?" the father exclaimed. "Oh, I won't be walking there. I made a new friend, and he's a cultivator who can fly." His parents looked at him with worried expressions on their tired faces. "Wu Qi, are you sure you're not being tricked by this person? Why would a cultivator want anything to do with you, much less take you to the first city?" "Don't say that. He may be standing outside, but he can definitely hear you." "Where and how did you meet this cultivator?" The young man named Wu Qi summarized the situation to them. "A gold coin for 23 bowls of noodles." "Aya. I knew I raised a gullible son, but to think you were this stupid." The mother sighed while shaking her head. "Son, listen to your mother and wake up. I doubt this guy is a cultivator, much less generous enough to give you a gold coin for some noodles, the source of this 1/10 novelfire.net. Wu Qi gritted his teeth in frustration and shouted, "Fine, don't believe me if you don't want to. You can even call me stupid, but I'm going to trust my guts and head to the first city." Without another word, he turned around and stomped away. "Wu Qi! Stop right there." Seeing this, his parents immediately went to block his path. "Let me go," Wu Qi shouted. No, you'll have to step over our dead bodies if you want to throw away your life. Do you have any idea how much effort we've put into raising you?" Wu Qi fell silent after hearing such words. At that moment, Yuan entered their home and said, "I apologize for the intrusion. I wasn't going to intervene, but seeing how things have progressed, I think it would be for the best if I stepped in." Are you that so-called cultivator? We know you're trying to scam our son, so get lost." The mother approached Yuan in an aggressive manner. "Mother, don't." Yuan silently shook his head before hovering his body off the ground. "As you can see, I am a real cultivator." Everyone in the room froze, their eyes staring at Yuan in disbelief. To further convince them, Yuan used his spiritual energy to grab a nearby chair, placing it behind him and sitting on it. After a moment of silence, the mother who was standing right before Yuan snapped out of her daze and immediately fell to her knees. "Please excuse this lowly mortal for her foolishness. I am willing to accept any punishment." "Forget it," Yuan interrupted. "I know you're worried for your son, but rest assured that I will bring him back safely. If Senior Immortal says so, we will believe it, of course." Despite saying that, the mother was still worried. Unfortunately, as mortals, they were powerless before a cultivator, so all they could do was nod their heads and agree. "Don't worry, Mother. I trust Senior Brother," said Wu Qi as he patted her back. Once things were settled with Wu Qi's family, they left his home. "Do you know the direction to the first city?" Yuan asked. Wu Qi scratched his head for a moment before responding, "Not exactly, but I know it's somewhere in that direction." He pointed toward the north. "All right." Without another word, Yuan wrapped his spiritual energy around Wu Qi and Mu Xuelian before flying into the sky and soaring toward the north. "Whoa! I am flying! I am really flying!" Wu Qi exclaimed, his face full of excitement. "Oh, by the way, my name is Wu Qi. May I ask for your name, Senior Brother?" Wu Qi said after realizing they hadn't had any introductions. "My name's Yuan, she's Mu Xuelian. Can I call you Senior Yuan? Go ahead." A few hours later, they arrived at another city. "This is the fourth city, so we're definitely heading in the right direction," said Wu Qi. "All right, let's keep going this way then." Chapter 2188, Chaos's Auction House. After arriving at the fourth city, Yuan continued flying in the same direction without stopping for another full day. That night, Wu Qi slept while still in the air, as he was a mortal who needed sleep. Though they were flying at great speed, the world felt strangely still when he closed his eyes, granting him a surprisingly peaceful rest. When Wu Qi opened his eyes again, it was already morning, and he could see another city in the distance. "That tall black building in the city? It's the first city. We're almost there," he said after noticing the pagoda in the distance. All right, hearing this, Yuan sped up some more. A few minutes later, they arrived at the city entrance. When the guards at the entrance saw Yuan, who was fast approaching in the air, they instantly lowered their heads, both in respect and in an effort to avoid drawing his attention. "Is this the first city?" Yuan asked as he descended before the guards. "Correct, Senior Immortal. This humble city is indeed the first city," responded one of the guards in a respectful manner. Although they have seen many cultivators come and go, they rarely see any of them fly to travel, as that was a luxury only the most powerful and influential cultivators could enjoy. "I got a few questions, if you don't mind. We'll do our best to answer Senior Immortal's questions. I'm trying to sell some valuables. Do you know of a place that deals with such things?" Without raising their heads, the guards responded, "For valuable treasures, there are two options. If Senior Immortal is in a hurry to sell his treasures, there is the Inferno Marketplace. If Senior Immortal isn't short on time, he can try the Chaos Auction House for a higher chance of obtaining more money. The auction house opens once every 2 weeks, and they plan to open in 2 days." Yuan pondered for a moment before speaking. "Can one of you show me the way to the auction house?" "It'd be my pleasure." One of the guards stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Their reverence left Yuan feeling uneasy. In the 9 heavens, where nearly everyone was a cultivator, such displays of deference were rare. Sometime later, the guard led Yuan to the auction house, which was only 15 minutes away from the entrance. This is the Chaos Auction House. If Senior Immortal has any more questions, this humble servant will be more than willing to answer them. No, that's all. Thank you, then, if you'll excuse me. The guard gave him one last bow before turning around and walking back the way they came. Let's go, Yuan said as he entered the auction house. Welcome to Chaos Auction House, the most reliable and best auction house in the entire region. Are you here to buy or sell? A young woman approached Yuan almost immediately after he entered the building. I'm here to sell. In that case, please follow me to the seller's room. Once they were seated inside a medium-sized room, the young woman gestured toward the table and said, I will get the treasure examiner right now. In the meantime, you can place everything you plan on selling at our auction house on the table. After saying that, she gave them a slight bow before leaving the room. Yuan reached inside his spatial ring and grabbed a handful of gold coins without even looking and casually placed them on the table. Wu Qi, who was sitting next to him, stared at the pile of gold coins with wide eyes and his mouth agape. Yuan noticed his reaction and asked, Is this too much? Wu Qi silently nodded his head. I see. Without another word, Yuan reduced the pile of gold coins by half. What about you? Yuan then asked. He shook his head and said, Well, you're already selling gold coins, many of them at that. I doubt my single gold coin will catch anyone's attention. Instead, I'll sell it at the Inferno market. Yuan smiled and said, We can just ask the auction house to sell your gold coin before mine. That way, you'll definitely be able to sell it for much more. Or you can sell it together with mine. I don't think the auction house will let us manipulate them like this. Wu Qi swallowed nervously. However, before Yuan could respond, the door opened and a well-dressed, middle-aged man walked inside the room. Sorry for the wait. I am your examiner, Chen Cheng. Let's see what you have. Chen Cheng's movements froze when he saw the small pile of gold coins on the table. Are my eyes deceiving me, or are those gold coins? He exclaimed after a moment of silence. Yuan nodded and confirmed. They are indeed gold coins. Hearing this, Chen Cheng swiftly approached the table, nearly tripping on himself in the process. Follow current novels on Novafire. When he reached the table, he dropped to his knees, his eyes fixed on the gleaming gold coins laid out before him. There are so many, and in such pristine condition. Chen Cheng's jaw fell open at the sight. In his 50 years as an examiner at the auction house, he had only ever encountered 2 gold coins, and both had been badly worn and damaged beyond recognition. Since every gold coin in the primordial realm dated back to the primordial era, it was only natural that most had long since become worn or damaged. I've only ever seen gold coins in such condition within books. To think I would behold so many at once today, I could die this very moment without regret. Chen Cheng exclaimed. However, he suddenly snapped out of it and cleared his throat. Ahem. My apologies for failing to contain my excitement. If you don't mind, I'll need to examine these coins and verify their authenticity before we proceed to the next steps, he said. Yuan nodded. Take your time. Oh, you missed one. Yuan gestured at Wu Qi, who was holding a single gold coin in his grasp. Chapter 2089 Chaos's Auction House 2. You also have one, Chen Cheng exclaimed as he stared at the gold coin in Wu Qi's grasp. Yes? Wu Qi quickly placed the gold coin onto the table. All right, give me a few minutes to verify them. Chen Cheng retrieved a pair of white gloves and a monocle-like item, and carefully inspected each coin once he was prepared, treating each of them as though they were priceless treasures. Some time later, after setting down the final gold coin, he drew in a deep breath. I have examined them all, and I can confirm each one is genuine, he said, his voice still tinged with daze and disbelief. Since you've confirmed their authenticity, will the auction house accept them? Yuan asked. Chen Cheng nodded. Yes, we can sell them for you. When would you like to put them up for auction? As soon as possible. You open up in 2 days, right? Can you sell them in 2 days? Google seer, no veal, fear veal, 5 nut, That's Chen Jing's expression immediately shifted to one of concern upon hearing Yuan's response. Is there a problem? Yuan asked with a raised eyebrow. Cheng hesitated for a moment before responding. To be honest with you, there are too many gold coins. I highly doubt we'll be able to sell them at a satisfactory price on such short notice. If you want the most profit, I suggest spreading their auctions and selling a single gold coin every few years. If you wish to sell all of them at once, well, there are very few people in this world who would be able to afford them, so you'll be losing out on the majority of their value. Yuan shook his head and said in a firm voice, I cannot wait a few years. Just sell them all in 2 days to the highest bidder. You can spread them out, such as selling them in small batches, but I want it all to be sold as soon as possible. He couldn't care less about losing the majority of the profit. To him, it was only a handful of gold coins worthless in his eyes. Of course, to Wu Qi and Chen Cheng, Yuan's actions seemed outrageously wasteful. Please, esteemed guest, it isn't that I object to selling it your way, but this auction house is under the management of the chaotic sect. If they discover how much money I squandered, losing my position would be the least of my worries. Chen Cheng said with a weary sigh. In that case, Yuan fell silent to ponder. After a moment of silence, he said, All right, I won't sell the gold coins. What? But that's... Let me finish. Yuan interrupted him and retrieved something from his spatial ring. I'll give you 1 week to sell this, he said as he placed a pebble-sized stone on the table. What is that? Chen Cheng asked with a puzzled face. Wu Qi was also curious about the item Yuan had just taken out. Before they could ask him how this pebble could replace the gold coins, Yuan revealed the item's name to them. It's a spirit stone. A what? Chen Cheng exclaimed, stumbling back in shock. Wu Qi only looked more puzzled as he'd never heard of a spirit stone before. Once Chen Cheng recovered from his shock, he approached the spirit stone on the table and inspected it from afar, not daring to get too close. If this is really a spirit stone, it'll definitely sell more than the gold coins, as it'll attract not just collectors but cultivators as well, he exclaimed. What is this spirit stone? Wu Qi asked out of curiosity. It contains spiritual energy and is what cultivators require to cultivate. Chen Cheng gave a brief explanation. So it's something like the spirit tree? I heard that place also has spiritual energy, Wu Qi remarked. No, the spirit tree is different. Chen Cheng shook his head. Anyway, although 1 week is not a lot of time, I think it's enough to spread the word far enough. Yuan nodded and said, By the way, do you know where the spirit tree is located? The spirit tree. No, I do not. It's a heavily guarded secret by the rulers of this world, so only the most powerful and influential cultivators are privy to that information. I see then. Do you think the spirit stone will attract someone from the ruling backgrounds? Oh, surely. I have no doubt that someone from the chaotic sect will show up for it, since I will be contacting them later about it. The others are also likely to appear, but I cannot guarantee it. All right. As for the gold coin, can you still sell one of them? Of course. Do you still want to sell the gold coin in 2 days, or would you like to sell it alongside the spirit stone? Chen Cheng asked. 2 days, he said. I understand, then. Would you like the auction house to hold the spirit stone for you? Go ahead, Yuan nodded. Thank you for your trust. We will not disappoint you. I'll take the spirit stone to our vault now. Be right back. Cheng left the room shortly after with the spirit stone and a single gold coin. Why didn't you wait a little longer to sell the gold coin? Wu Qi suddenly asked. I want to bring you back to your home before the auction, Yuan said. I don't mind staying here a little longer, he said. However, Yuan shook his head and said, It's for your safety. I have a feeling that things might get chaotic at the auction for the spirit stone. If you say so, Wu Qi nodded. Cheng returned to the room a few minutes later and said, I have secured your treasures. You can come back on the day of the auction if you have nothing else for me now. Then we'll be back in 2 days, Yuan said. Here's a token, Chen continued after handing them 3 metal tokens. Show this to our workers when you show up. It means you are our esteemed guests. Yuan accepted the token before handing one to Wu Qi and Mu Shuelian. See you in 2 days. Chapter 2190 Auction for a single gold coin. See you in 2 days, however. Just as Yuan and his group approached the exit, Yuan came to a sudden halt. Did you forget something? Chen Chang asked. Actually, I have an odd request. Yuan faced him and continued. Can I borrow some money? Excuse me? Chen Chang's eyes widened with disbelief, not daring to believe his ears. How could someone with so many gold coins and even a spirit stone ask for money? It made 0 sense. Seeing Chen's confused expression, Yuan explained, You see, we don't have any currencies. That's why we're trying to sell the gold coin and spirit stone as soon as possible. Don't worry. I'll return twice the amount you lend me. How much do you want? Chen Chang asked in a dazed voice. Just enough to rent a few rooms and eat some food for the next 2 days. Chen reached into his pocket and retrieved a large leather bag and said, Here's 10 large chaos coins and 100 small chaos coins. You can live luxuriously for an entire month, much less 2 days. Thanks. Yuan accepted the money and left the auction house shortly after. Once they were outside, Yuan asked Wu Qi, How much did he give us? I'm not familiar with its value. Wu Qi then explained, Ordinary people like my parents earn about 200 small coins a month. As for your large coin, a single one is worth 10,000 small coins, so you essentially have 100,000 small coins. I see. In that case, let's go eat. Wu Qi nodded. I'm glad you said that because I am starving. They proceeded to wander the city until they found a restaurant that seemed appealing enough to enter. Sometime later, after they finished their meal, Yuan's group went to rent 3 rooms in a hotel. Senior, what are you going to do for the next 2 days? Wu Qi asked him. Original content can be found at Nove FireNet. I'm going to cultivate, he said. In that case, I'll take a look around the city. I doubt I will ever come back here after all. Here, take this. Yuan handed him a single large coin. This is? Wu Qi stared at it with a dumbfounded face. You don't have any money, right? I can't take this. Just take it or I'll just throw it away. Yuan flicked the coin into the air, forcing Wu Qi to catch it. Thank you, Wu Qi muttered as he stared at the coin in his grasp. Then I'll leave now. Have fun, Yuan said before entering his room to cultivate. Since the primordial realm was full of chaotic essence, he could improve his chaotic dragon core again. Meanwhile, Wu Qi wandered through the city. Though the primordial realm was a land steeped in danger and lawlessness, its cities remained remarkably safe due to an iron rule compared to the 9 heavens. No, even compared to Earth, the population of the primordial realm was laughably small. Since most of its dwellers were mortals, strict laws forbade cultivators from fighting in or near the cities, lest humanity itself edge toward extinction. Those who violate this law would be branded as criminals and hunted by all 4 ruling backgrounds. However, the moment one stepped beyond the safe zone, everything became fair game, whether mortal or immortal. Though some might call this contradictory, such was simply the way their society functioned. 2 days passed in a flash, and in that time word of a gold coin being sold at the Chaos Auction House spread to every corner of the city, stirring the interest of many collectors. Unfortunately, the news went no further. With spiritual energy scarce in the primordial realm, communication jade slips were exceedingly rare and reserved only for true emergencies. However, while the gold coin had stirred the interest of mortal collectors, the announcement of a spirit stone to be auctioned in a week spread like wildfire, reaching even the ears of cultivators in distant regions. What, a spirit stone in the primordial realm? How is that possible? A cultivator questioned the legitimacy of this news. The Chaos Auction House announced it, so it must be true. I doubt they'd do something as foolish as lying about this, even if it's a spirit stone. I don't get the hype. It doesn't last forever, and I doubt it'll have much effect on cultivators beyond a certain level. You really don't get it, huh? How do you think mortals become cultivators in a world that lacks spiritual energy? You don't mean... That's right. The only way for a mortal to become a cultivator is either to go to the spirit tree or a spiritual rift, as these are the only ways for us to acquire spiritual energy. However, neither of these options is viable for most people. Although a single spirit stone may not benefit cultivators like us, it's a godly treasure for ordinary mortals. I bet a lot of powerhouses will fight for it to help their children become cultivators. To embark on the path of cultivation, one must first absorb spiritual energy. Yet in the primordial realm there were only two sources, the spirit tree guarded within the Asura clan's territory and the rare spiritual rifts, unpredictable anomalies that could never be relied upon. Because of this, spirit stones became treasures of immense value. In fact, every spirit stone brought to the primordial realm in the past had been used in precisely this way. Unfortunately, spirit stones have long since become extinct, so the number of people becoming cultivators has drastically decreased. On the day of the auction for the gold coin, Yuan made his way to the auction house with Wu Qi and Mu Shuelian. "Wow, there are so many people here," Wu Qi remarked as they arrived at the auction house. The street was so crowded it became a sea of bodies, making it impossible to move any closer. "Are they all here for the gold coin? Or are they waiting for the spirit stone? Either way, I like this," he chuckled. Chapter 2191, Auction for a Single Gold Coin. 2. It took a couple of hours, but Yuan's group eventually made it to the entrance of the auction house. "I'm sorry, but the seats are already fully occupied. If you're here to bid for the gold coin, you'll have to do so out here," said the worker at the entrance. Yuan didn't say anything and retrieved the token he got from Chen Cheng, showing it to him. The worker's eyes widened at the sight of the token, and he quickly said, "Please excuse me for not recognizing you, esteemed guests. We have reserved seats for you all in room 3. He then stepped aside to let Yuan's group into the building. "Hey, how come they get to go inside, but we're not?" Those who weren't allowed inside began complaining outside. However, Yuan's group simply ignored them and quickly disappeared inside. A few minutes later, they arrived at their room and went inside. Their room was located above the ground floor, allowing them not only a perfect view of the stage, but also of other guests. Yuan and the others took a seat by the window and began waiting for the auction to begin. "Most of these guests are mortals, with a few cultivators sprinkled within," Yuan remarked as he gazed at the crowd. "I'm not surprised. Only collectors would be interested in something like a gold coin since it doesn't have any practical use," said Wu Qi minutes later. They heard a knock on the door. "Esteemed guests, it's me, Chen Cheng. May I bother you for a moment?" "You can enter." "Thank you." Chen Cheng opened the door and bowed to them. "I came here immediately after hearing of your arrival. I hope this room is to your liking. If not, we can change it." "Our room is just fine." "Do you need something from us?" Yuan asked. "It's not me. The chaotic sect wants to have an audience with you," said Chen Cheng. "After I spread news of the Spirit Stone and notified the chaotic sect, I was contacted by them and was told they wanted to speak with you." "Did they say what they wanted to speak to me about?" Chen Cheng shook his head. "No, I was not told the details." Rides, Fiat Spurs, novel firenet. Yuan pondered for a moment before responding. "Tell them I'll speak with them after the auction for the Spirit Stone. Is it not possible to speak to them before?" They sounded a bit impatient. "So what? It's just 5 days. They can wait," Yuan calmly replied, leaving Chen Cheng speechless. "I understand. I'll let them know. If you need any service or have any questions, there will be a servant available right outside your room. Now, if you'll excuse me," Chen Cheng bowed to him before leaving the room. "Why are you making the chaotic sect wait? They're one of the most powerful and influential backgrounds in this world." Wu Qi stared at him with a dazed and confused face. "They probably want to see if they can buy the Spirit Stone directly from me. Even if that's not the case, I'm just trying to send a message." "A message?" Wu Qi became even more puzzled. Yuan smiled but did not elaborate. Seeing how Yuan didn't want to explain, Wu Qi didn't press further and returned to looking at the platform below. About an hour later, Chen Cheng walked onto the platform and stood before the crowd with a satisfied smile on his face. The Chaos Auction House had 1,000 seats, but there were usually no more than 100 or so guests. However, not a single seat was empty today. Welcome to the Chaos Auction House, fellow guests and esteemed guests. I'm Chen Cheng, an appraiser for the auction house. Normally the auction is done by someone else, but due to circumstances, I will be hosting it today. Therefore, allow me to apologize in advance for my lack of experience and any mistakes I may make during the auction. Before we begin, allow me to explain some of our rules. Chen Cheng proceeded to reveal the typical auction rules. You are not allowed to threaten other guests with your background. Once you call out a bid, you're not able to take it back. A few minutes later. Now, let us begin the auction for our first treasure. We have an excellent sword crafted by the renowned blacksmith Shi Yang from the Yuan watched the auction with interest at first, but his interest disappeared after several items when he realized that everything being auctioned was meant for mortals. What was I expecting from the primordial realm? A world where there is no natural spiritual energy? Yuan shook his head inwardly. A world without natural spiritual energy didn't just make cultivation difficult. It also made crafting treasures almost impossible. So most of the weapons in this world were ordinary weapons without any special capabilities. After a dozen items were sold, it was finally time for the gold coin to be auctioned. Before we begin selling the last item for the day, I would like to thank everyone here for their participation and appearance, said Chen Cheng, as another worker pushed a cart onto the stage. Atop the cart rested a single gold coin, displayed upon a luxurious cloth and treated as though it were a priceless treasure, and now, the main item of today's auction, a gold coin untouched by time. Not only is it perfectly pristine, but it bears not a single mark of damage. Chen Cheng proclaimed as he gestured at the cart, "Ooh, it really is a pristine gold coin." Many guests exclaimed, leaning forward in their seats to catch a clearer glimpse. Naturally, the auction house had cleaned up the gold coin before the auction, but even if they hadn't done such a thing, the coin was like new. After a brief pause, Chen Cheng's voice rang out once more, "We will now begin the auction for this gold coin, the starting bid 500,000 small chaos coins. Chapter 2192, Auction for a single gold coin 3, 500,000? For a single coin?" Yuan raised an eyebrow at the absurd starting price. Now he understood why Chen Cheng gave him so much money without hesitation. 550,000. Someone immediately increased the bid. 560,000, 590,000, 690,000. The guests continued bidding one after another, and in the blink of an eye raised the bid to over 1,000,000 small chaos coins. 1,000,000! Wu Qi's eyes widened, his jaw falling open as he stared at the chaotic scene. For someone from an ordinary family like him, such a sum was nothing short of astronomical. It was something he could only dream of. However, the auction was just getting started. 1,200,000, 1,500,000, 3,300,000. In the blink of an eye, someone doubled the highest bid, causing heads to turn. Isn't that the Golden King, who was a hardcore collector for anything gold? I knew he'd show up for the gold coin. I heard that almost everything in his house is gold, including the house itself. The other guests started chatting with each other. Although 1,000 guests were present, most of them had no plans to bid for the gold coin, as it was obviously beyond their capabilities. However, the bidders inside the auction house were not the only ones competing. Many guests who had been unable to enter due to limited space were placing their bids from outside. The bidding for the gold coin continued fiercely for several more minutes before it slowed down, and the number of bidders drastically decreased. Sometime later, Chen Cheng announced the winner. Sold to the Golden King for 70 million small chaos coins. Sure enough, the Golden King won the bid. Holy shit, 70 million? I knew gold coins were expensive, but I didn't think it would be worth this much. In the past, most gold coins had sold for only a few million at best, with the highest ever recorded at 7 million. But those had all been damaged coins. A flawless coin like the one Yuan offered had never been seen before. This marks the end of today's auction. Once again, I would like to thank everyone who has come today for your participation. Chen Cheng bowed to the crowd. If you have purchased an item, please head to the collection room to complete the transaction. One last announcement before I take my leave, if you haven't heard already. The Chaos Auction House will be offering a spirit stone for sale in 5 days. However, due to its immense value and high profile, strict requirements will be enforced for participation. I ask for your understanding, he said before turning around and disappearing from the stage. This content belongs to Novel Fire. Net, let's collect our money, shall we? Yuan turned to face Wu Qi with a smile. Okay. Wu Qi nodded in a dazed manner. After leaving the room, they were led to the collection room by the servant who had been waiting outside. There were 2 collection rooms in the auction house. One was for the buyers and the other for sellers. You can collect your money here once the buyer completes the transaction, said the servant. Sometime later, Chen Cheng showed up in their room with a large chest. After deducting our auction house's 15% fee, your profit from the sale of the gold coin amounts to 59,500,000 small chaos coins. We've already converted them into large chaos coins for your convenience. There are 5,950 in total, Chen Cheng explained as he opened the box and revealed a mountain of coins in it. Do you have any questions for me? Yuan retrieved 30 large chaos coins from the box and handed them to him. This is more than I lend you, Chen Cheng said with a surprised face. Consider it a bonus, Yuan said with a smile. Thank you. Chen Cheng bowed deeply. Yuan turned to Wu Qi and asked, You ready to return home? Yes, he nodded. I'll carry the money for you, Yuan said as he stored the box inside his spatial ring. Both Wu Qi and Chen Cheng stared at him with a bewildered look on their faces as they had never seen a spatial ring before. Where did it go? Wu Qi asked. Yuan showed him the ring and said, In here. I have never seen anything like that before, he remarked. That function don't tell me it's a spatial ring? Chen Cheng asked after swallowing nervously. Yuan calmly nodded. Heavens, Chen Cheng was speechless. Spatial rings were unimaginably rare, so rare that fewer than 10 existed in the entire primordial realm, each belonging only to the realm's most powerful figures. Not only does he have many pristine gold coins and a spirit stone, but he also has a spatial ring? Just who in the world is this guy? Chen Cheng cried inwardly. If there's nothing else, we'll be taking our leave now, said Yuan. Oh, okay, I'll see you in 5 days for the spirit stones auction. Chen Cheng nodded. Yuan and his group started walking toward the door, but before they could reach it, it swung open, and 2 figures stepped into the room. When Chen Cheng saw these 2 figures, his face immediately twisted with surprise. This humble servant greets the Chaos Elders. Chaos Elders? Yuan raised an eyebrow as he looked at the man and woman, both dressed in black, standing by the entrance. They also stared back, and after a moment of silence, the man opened his mouth to speak. Are you the one with the spirit stone? Who's asking? Yuan responded. We're from the chaotic sect, replied the woman. I see. And what do you want? We're here to talk. Talk? I'm pretty sure I already said to wait until after the auction for the spirit stone, Yuan said. The woman frowned and said, How impudent. The chaotic sect went out of its way to approach you, and you're telling us to wait? Do you really think you're above us because you have a spirit stone? Chapter 2193, Wu Qi's Gift. The atmosphere in the room instantly became heavy with the woman's words. However, Yuan remained unaffected and calmly responded. Is the chaotic sect so great that waiting 5 days is considered offensive? The woman's face flushed red as she spoke. Are you mocking our chaotic sect? Yuan casually shrugged. If you find everything that comes out of my mouth offensive, then let's just stop here. I have other things to do without waiting for a response. Yuan walked around them and toward the exit. Where the hell do you think you're going? We're still talking. We can talk in 5 days, or we cannot talk at all. The choice is up to you, Yuan replied without stopping his legs. If you dare take a step through that door, you will regret it for the rest of your life, said the woman in a grim tone. Yuan halted his steps and turned his head to look at her with slightly narrowed eyes. Are you threatening me? In that case, you can forget it. I won't talk to the chaotic sect anymore. You impudent bastard, have you forgotten where you are? Not only are you in the chaotic sect's territory, but you are also selling your spirit stone at our auction house. So what you're saying is, I should sell the spirit stone elsewhere. Am I hearing that correctly? I'm going to kill you, the woman shouted as her body surged with killing intent. Stop. The man finally stepped in and spoke. Let's all calm down a bit. However, Yuan said, sorry, but you've stepped in a little too late. I have already made up my mind that I won't speak with the chaotic sect. If you continue to pester me, I'll even take back the spirit stone that will be auctioned in 5 days. That would not be possible, said the man. While I can look past the issue of not talking, I cannot let you take back the spirit stone, especially after all the advertisements we've done for it. If you take back the spirit stone and halt the auction, it'd cause tremendous damage to the chaotic sect's reputation, and we'd have to stop you at all costs. If you don't want such a thing to happen, then let's end our conversation here. The very next moment, Yuan left the room without any hesitation. Are we really going to let him go after all that? The woman asked the man. After a moment of silence, he spoke. There are too many people here now. Let's lay low until the auction is finished. We'll take care of him afterward. All right. The man turned to look at Chen Cheng and said, unless you have a death wish, you will act like you heard and saw nothing today. Chen Cheng was so terrified that he didn't even dare to speak and silently nodded his head. Meanwhile, after leaving the auction house, Yuan immediately left the city to bring Wu Qi back to his family. Senior, I don't mean to be nosy, but why did you offend the chaotic sect? Nothing good will come out of it. Why? I didn't like their attitude. That's it? Wu Qi was dumbfounded. Yes, that's it. Aren't you afraid that they might hunt you later? It'll be fine, although this means that I won't be able to get information on the spirit tree from the chaotic sect. There are other places I can go, such as the Zhao family and the Inferno alchemists. I just hope that they won't hunt me down for being with you. Wu Qi sighed. Yuan smiled and said, Don't worry. They didn't even look at you, as all of their attention was on me. Sometime later, they returned to the seventh city. Yuan brought Wu Qi straight to his home, where his parents were anxiously waiting. Mother, father, I am back, Wu Qi said as he entered the building. Oh, you're really back, his mother cried after seeing him. Is there really a need to cry? I told you that I would be back. Once they calmed down, Yuan retrieved the box of money from his spatial ring and placed it on the floor. Here's your money, he said. Wu Qi then asked, We're not going to split it. No, it's all yours. After all, it came from selling your gold coin. But you gave it to me, Wu Qi said in a dumbfounded voice. Even if Yuan said he wanted 90% of the money, he wouldn't have refused. Hell, even 1% of the wealth from selling the gold coin would allow his family to live comfortably for the rest of their lives. Yuan smiled and said, If I really need money, I can just pawn off a few gold coins. Moreover, I will have plenty from selling the spirit stone in a few days. After a moment of silence, Wu Qi sighed. I don't even know how to begin to thank you for changing our lives. Follow current novels on Novelfire.net. You don't have to thank me, even if you say that. Oh, I know. Please wait here for a minute. Wu Qi suddenly turned around and ran away, quickly disappearing from their view. He returned moments later with something in his grasp. I bought this a few years ago from a wandering merchant. Unfortunately, I don't know if it has any uses or if it's even valuable at all since I got it because it looked neat. Resting on Wu Qi's palm was a crystal the size of a finger. At first glance, it looked pitch black, but upon closer inspection, faint black liquid seemed to swirl within. Yuan accepted it casually, but the moment he examined it more closely, his eyes widened in surprise. There's an immense amount of chaotic essence within this crystal. He wasn't sure what it was, but he was certain that if he absorbed it, his second cultivation would skyrocket several realms without any issues. Yingzi emerged from his shadow to take a look, since it also piqued her curiosity. "You know what this is?" he asked. She shook her head and said, "No, but merely looking at it sends chills down my spine." Chapter 294, Auction for the Spirit Stone. "Thanks, Wu Qi, for this gift," Yuan said to him after stowing away the crystal. "Do you think we can meet again in the future?" Wu Qi asked. "Honestly, I don't know, since I won't be staying in the primordial realm for long." "What?" Wu Qi raised his eyebrows in a puzzled manner. Yuan smiled and said, "I'm actually not from this world, but from the 9 heavens, which exists beyond this world." Wu Qi's jaw dropped, too speechless to even utter a sound. However, everything about Yuan made sense after learning of this revelation. No wonder he has so many gold coins and treasures that are insanely rare in this world. To think he had come from the outside world. After a moment of silence, Wu Qi asked, "Can I ask why you decided to come to our world?" "I have some business with the Asura clan, that's all." Wu Qi swallowed nervously. Though he still had many questions, he decided not to ask them. "In that case, good luck." Yuan nodded. "Goodbye." Yuan left the city shortly after and immediately made his way back to the first city. As he traveled, he pondered whether he should consume the black crystal he got from Wu Qi. The amount of chaotic essence it contains is unlike anything I have ever seen. If I consumed it, I could probably create at least 2 more chaotic hearts. However, he also understood that it was unwise to consume something so mysteriously powerful. Though he may have a godlike body, it was not omnipotent. Moreover, the vast amount of chaotic essence within the crystal could take him several years just to absorb, so he also needed a place and time to do it properly. A day later, Yuan returned to the first city. He'd only been gone for a little over 2 days, but the number of visitors had grown several times since then, and most of them were cultivators. Nearly half wore matching attire, divided into 3 distinct groups. One faction was clad in black robes, another in red and gold, and the last in green. Obviously, these 3 groups belonged to the chaotic sect, Inferno Alchemists, and the Zhao family, the 3 ruling factions in the primordial realm. However, the Asura clan was nowhere to be seen. As Yuan and Mu Shuelian made their way through the crowded streets, nearly every gaze was drawn to them. Mu Shuelian, a peerless beauty with cultivation at the peak of the God Ascension realm, commanded admiration, while Yuan radiated an unfathomable aura even as he suppressed it. "Who's that beauty, with her cultivation and appearance? There's no way I haven't heard of her." "Judging by her appearance, she doesn't seem to be with any of the top 3 factions. Maybe she's from a hidden family. Look at that handsome man next to her. Although his cultivation isn't too impressive, I can feel something unfathomably profound coming from his very presence. He's suppressing it, but he clearly has a lot of spiritual energy in his body." Despite their interest, nobody tried to approach them. In the primordial realm, cultivators preferred to mind their own business, as those who stand out tend to become targeted. Of course, that didn't apply to everyone, and eventually someone approached Yuan and Mu Shuelian. "Excuse me, may I have a moment of your time?" A well-dressed, middle-aged man approached them and said, "How can I help you?" Yuan responded as he glanced at the man's green robes. "I am a recruiter from the Zhao family. I was wondering if I could treat you 2 to some tea." "Maybe another time, we're busy now," Yuan calmly replied. "I understand. If you ever have the time, please visit the Zhao family in the Zhao province." The man nodded and then offered him a token. Yuan accepted the token and continued walking. At least they're not as arrogant as those 2 from the chaotic sect. Yuan smiled inwardly as he made his way to the auction house. They arrived at their destination shortly after, and unsurprisingly, it was filled to the brim with people, far more than before. Of course, most of the people there belonged to one of the 3 top factions. When Yuan eventually reached the entrance, he was immediately greeted by the same worker he had met the previous week. "Welcome back, esteemed guests. Allow me to escort you to your room." Yuan followed the worker to the same room from last time. Please, make yourself comfortable while I let appraiser Cheng know of your arrival. The worker left, and several minutes later, Chen Cheng knocked on the door. Esteemed guest. It's me, Chen Cheng. Enter. Chen Cheng entered the room at his command. Welcome back, esteemed guest. I hope did those two idiots make things difficult for you after I left? Yuan suddenly asked, catching him off guard. Idiots? Chen Cheng swallowed nervously as he quickly closed the door behind him. Sorry about how things went, but I didn't appreciate their attitude. No, there's no need for you to apologize. Chen Cheng recalled the Chaos Elder's plans for Yuan after the auction and couldn't help but feel bad for him. I guess something did happen after I left, Yuan suddenly said, startling Chen Cheng. What do you mean? Nothing happened after you left. Although the elders were upset, they left without saying anything. Yuan narrowed his eyes at Chen Cheng and sighed. You're not very good at lying. Tit, that's... Chen Cheng was speechless. So, what did they say? Are they going to kill me after the auction or something along those lines? Seeing Chen Cheng tremble, Yuan calmly chuckled. I see. So that's their plan. Get full chapters from novel FireNet. How Chen Cheng suddenly spoke. How can you be so calm? You're going to be hunted by the chaotic sect. You know, unless you have connections with the Asura clan, you will never be safe in this world ever again. If you had agreed to talk with them, none of this would have happened. Chapter 2195, Auction for the Spirit Stone. 2. Yuan smiled at Chen Cheng's words and said, I appreciate your concern, but the chaotic sect is nothing in my eyes. Nothing in your eyes? Chen Cheng swallowed nervously. In his mind, only someone from the Asura clan would dare speak with such arrogance. Is he actually from the Asura clan? But then why would he need information on the spirit tree? No, let's stop thinking about this. It's beyond me. After a moment of hesitation, Chen Cheng said, The Chaos Elders intend to take care of you after the auction. Please be careful. He gave a swift bow to Yuan before walking toward the exit. Thanks for the information, Yuan said as Chen Cheng left the room. Sometime later, Chen Cheng appeared on the stage to begin the auction. Welcome back, esteemed guests, to the Chaos Auction House. I am Chen Cheng, an appraiser, and just like last week's auction, I was tasked with today's auction. He proceeded to give the same speech as last week, going through the rules and whatnot. Now, without further ado, let us begin this week's auction. For the first item, we have a rare divine-grade sword. Its name is Bloody Enlightenment, and it was once wielded by the Mad Bloodhound. Yuan raised an eyebrow when he saw the item being auctioned. For more chapters, visit novelfire.net. They're selling a divine-grade sword for the first time. I guess they decided to bring out all of the good stuff for the guests today, he remarked. Since most of the guests at the auction were cultivators, there was no sense in offering items meant for mortals. Besides, with the spirit stone so highly anticipated, everyone present was guaranteed to have deep pockets. 100 million, 150 million. In the blink of an eye, the item was sold for 210 million small chaos coins. Though spiritual treasures required spiritual energy to unleash their full potential, they remained incomparably more durable than ordinary weapons, granting their wielder a tremendous advantage over those without one. For this reason, they were still highly sought after and expensive. Of course, they also served as symbols of status and power. The next several items were also spiritual treasures, and each was better than the last. Sometime later, it was finally time for the Spirit Stone to be auctioned. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. With a flourish, Chen Cheng pulled away the cloth covering the display case, revealing the Spirit Stone within. Though it appeared far less impressive than the treasures auctioned before it, the instant it was unveiled, every guest's eyes lit up with awe and excitement. It's really a Spirit Stone. We haven't seen one of those since they were all used up long ago. If I had that Spirit Stone, my son would be able to cultivate. I must get my hands on it, even if I have to go into debt. Chen Cheng went on. Before we begin the bidding, allow me to introduce today's item. As you all surely know, a spirit stone is a cultivation resource brimming with spiritual energy. While such stones are plentiful in the outside world within the primordial realm, one has not been seen for millions of years since they've all been used. A spirit stone never decays nor loses its potency, so there is no need to rush in using it. Now then, the auction will begin at 200 million. 1 billion. Someone swiftly bid for the spirit stone before Chen Cheng could even finish, which started a chain reaction. 1 billion and 100 million. 1 billion and 200 million. In the blink of an eye, the bidding for the spirit stone soared to an astounding 1 billion, 500 million. Heavens, I knew it was going to be a fierce competition, but to think it'd reach 1 billion at the very start. The chaotic sect is especially fierce today. The next several items were also spiritual treasures, and each was better than the last. Sometime later, it was finally time for the spirit stone to be auctioned. Who do you think will win in the end? Surely, it must be the Inferno alchemists, right? They're the wealthiest faction in the world. But they have the most access to the spirit tree, so they're not really starved for spiritual energy. So it's a fight between the chaotic sect and the Zhao family, huh? The Zhao family will likely win the auction since they have more money than the chaotic sect. Most had expected the Zhao family to claim victory, yet by the end, all were left speechless when the chaotic sect secured the spirit stone with a bid of 11 billion. 11 billion. That's insane. Do they even have that much money? Unbeknownst to the crowd, the chaotic sect would not have hesitated to pay even more, for they knew they would soon reclaim their wealth regardless. And with that, today's auction comes to an end. We look forward to seeing you all at the next. Chen Cheng began. Wait. Who is the owner of the spirit stone? I would like to speak with them, someone from the crowd suddenly interrupted. Me too. I would also like to speak to the seller. The place quickly filled with people wanting to meet Yuan. I'm sorry, but the seller wishes their identity to remain a secret. But before he could finish, the doors to the auction hall burst open, and a figure strode inside, declaring, I am the owner of that spirit stone. What? Everyone in the room turned their heads to look at Yuan, who just entered the room. Who is that? I don't recognize him either. Chen Cheng stared at Yuan with wide eyes. Who are you, and can you prove that you are the seller? Someone suddenly asked. Yuan calmly nodded. Of course. He proceeded to reach inside his pocket and retrieved another spirit stone. Heavens, he has another spirit stone. While the crowd erupted with excitement at the appearance of a second spirit stone, the auction's winners wore twisted expressions ugly, as though they had just swallowed a live fly. They turned to glare at Chen Cheng, who noticed it and quickly shook his head, as if trying to say he didn't know anything about a second spirit stone.
Chapter 2196, Auction for the Spirit Stone 3.
A second spirit stone? He actually has a second spirit stone. Do you intend on selling that spirit stone as well? Yuan responded to the inquiry. Yes, I do intend on selling the spirit stone, but I don't want money for it. What do you want? Someone asked. I'll give this spirit stone to whoever can provide me with the location of the spirit tree. What? The room fell into instant silence, the guests glancing at one another with uncertain, wary looks. Although the spirit stone was an attractive offer, it wasn't something worth offending the Asura clan for. Seeing the deafening silence, Yuan reached into his pocket and retrieved a third spirit stone, causing everyone to widen their eyes again. He's pulled out another spirit stone. Heavens, how many of those does he actually have? While some started considering telling Yuan about the spirit tree, others wondered if he would pull out more spirit stones if they waited a little longer. If you don't mind me asking, why are you searching for the spirit tree? Someone suddenly asked. Yuan turned to look at the individual, a middle-aged man wearing green robes who was the same person bidding against the chaotic sect for the spirit stone at the very end. The man continued, even if you know its location, you cannot enter it without the Asura clan's permission. I want to go there exactly because I have some business with the Asura clan. The room fell silent again. When no one responded, Yuan spoke up. Perhaps some of you prefer not to speak in public, so I'll end it here. My offer will remain in effect until I am informed of the information I need to know. You can find me in room 302 at the Black Inn, 4 blocks from here. Having said that, Yuan turned around and disappeared, leaving everyone speechless. The other guests began leaving shortly after. Meanwhile, Yuan went to collect his earnings for the Spirit Stone. Your earnings for the Spirit Stone are 9,350,000,000 small chaos coins after deduction from our auction house's 15% fee. However, due to the massive amount, we regret to inform you that it'll take some time for the money to be transferred, said Chen Cheng. And how long will that take? Yuan asked. We should have the money ready by next week, he said. Yuan smiled and asked, You sure the chaotic sect isn't trying to screw me over? I have no comments. Chen Cheng shook his head. Very well. Since I have some time to spare, I'll wait. However, if I don't have my money by then, I'll personally visit the chaotic sect, and there won't be any conversations, if you know what I mean. That's Chen Cheng opened his mouth, but didn't know how to respond. Yuan continued. Don't worry, I wasn't talking to you, but the sneaky rat in this room. Chen Cheng's eyes widened at his words. In the next moment, the hidden presence unveiled itself, revealing none other than the male Chaos Elder from the other day. That's quite the bold threat, even though it's nothing but an empty one. Nu you farts, relieve, leave, flirt, leave, like, frail, me. No, with After departing the auction house, he returned to his hotel room to wait for someone to accept his offer, and it didn't take long. At the sound of a knock, Yuan opened the door to find a figure cloaked in gray, their appearance concealed from head to toe. "Is the offer still available?" asked the man in a rough tone. "Sure is. Want to talk inside?" However, the man shook his head and said, "There are too many people here. Let's talk somewhere more private." "Sure, lead the way." "Want me to come with you?" Mushuelian asked him from the other room through voice transmission. "No, you can stay here." And so Yuan followed the man out of the hotel. Before long, they had left the city behind entirely, traveling until even the distant outline of its walls was lost from sight. "Surely this is far enough," Yuan said. The man halted his movements and turned toward Yuan, who wore a calm expression despite the sketchy situation. "You're a little too calm." "Are you not worried that I might rob you?" asked the man. "Would I have followed you all the way out here if I were worried?" Yuan responded. "Fair enough." The cloaked figure pulled back his hood, revealing himself as the very man who had questioned Yuan at the auction house about his interest in the spirit tree's location. "I don't mind telling you the location of the spirit tree, but I must ask, what business do you have with the Asura clan?" "Just some personal business." The man narrowed his eyes and fell silent to ponder. "Are you planning to fight the Asura clan?" he finally asked. Yuan raised an eyebrow. "And what makes you think that?" "You're wealthy enough to possess 3 spirit stones, so you're clearly from a powerful background. If I had to guess, you belong to one of the factions long denied access to the spirit tree, and now you seek revenge against the Asura clan." Yuan was amazed at the misunderstanding, but he didn't deny it and played along to see where they would go. "Are you now going to say that you won't tell me the spirit tree's location because you don't want any involvement?" However, to Yuan's surprise, the man shook his head and said, "No, that's not it. In fact, we would like to help you. We. The Asura clan has monopolized the spirit tree since ancient times, and there are many people who are sick of it. That's why many of us are going to put an end to it. Why don't you join us? We'll get you to the spirit tree and back you in your revenge," the man urged, Chapter 2197. Location of the spirit tree. Hearing the man's offer, Yuan couldn't help but smile. "I see. So you're going to attack the Asura clan. How many people do you already have with you?" he asked. The man then said, "We have the majority of the top factions on our side. The Asura clan might be powerful, undoubtedly the most powerful in the primordial realm. But if we all work together, not even they will be able to stop us." "You sound very confident." "Have you fought the Asura clan before?" "Nobody has seriously fought the Asura clan in ages. However, they are not omnipotent. Moreover, they have fewer than 10 people in their faction, while we have over 10,000 experts. There's no way we will lose to them." After a moment of silence, Yuan asked, "When do you plan to attack the Asura clan?" "We're already fully prepared, so we can attack whenever. Right now, we're just waiting for an opportunity to launch our attack. In other words, it might happen a week or 100 years from now." Yuan shook his head. "Unfortunately, I'm short on time. Why are you in such a hurry?" Yuan pondered for a brief moment before responding. "Because I am hunted by the chaotic sect, and the longer I am away from my family, the more dangerous things get for me." "What? Why is the chaotic sect hunting you?" The man frowned at this news. Yuan gave a brief explanation of his situation with the chaotic sect. "Those arrogant bastards are always trying to take advantage of others. It's because of this behavior that we decided not to include them in our plan, as people like them are likely to backstab us. But you don't need to worry, as long as you join us. Not even the chaotic sect will be able to touch you. If you say that, it'll be hard for me to refuse," Yuan said with a smile after a moment of silence. He continued, "All right, I'll join your cause, however. Can you still tell me the location of the spirit tree? I won't approach the Asura clan alone. I just want to have peace of mind knowing where I can find them. Even if you know the location, you won't be able to enter it without the Asura clan or the Inferno Alchemist's assistance." "What's the Inferno Alchemist have to do with this?" Yuan raised an eyebrow. Well, the spirit tree exists in its own dimension, and it can only be accessed by the Asura clan or the head of the Inferno alchemists. What's their relationship with the Asura clan? The man stared at Yuan with a baffled expression. You truly know nothing of this world? Just how isolated has your life been until now? Yuan silently shrugged. Anyway, the Inferno alchemists are basically the only alchemists in the primordial realm. But without spiritual energy, they can hardly practice their craft. That's why they struck a deal with the Asura clan, unlimited pills for them in return for access to the spirit tree. Our lack of access to the spirit tree is also another reason why we cannot attack them whenever we want. Are the Inferno alchemists not on our side? Yuan questioned. The man shook his head and said, no. Those guys only care about alchemy and money, and since they already have access, they wouldn't want to jeopardize it. Then how do you plan on reaching the spirit tree, much less attacking the Asura clan? Do you intend on forcing the alchemists to lead you to the spirit tree or something? You're quite insightful. That's right. We are going to force them to take us to the spirit tree. The Inferno alchemists barely have 100 members in their faction, so it won't be difficult to subdue them. Yuan found it amusing how this man was so quick to reveal their schemes to someone who was no more than a stranger. Does he have ulterior motives, or is he really just this loose lip? He wondered inwardly. So, where's the spirit tree located? Yuan asked as he retrieved 2 spirit stones and showed them to the man. The entrance to the spirit tree is located at the burning tree in the land of Inferno, but, like I said, you won't be able to enter it without the Asura clan or the Inferno alchemists. I know. Here are your spirit stones. Yuan casually handed him the spirit stones. Take this. In exchange, the man handed him a token and continued. This will not only serve as an identification, but also a communication device. If it activates, you must immediately head to the spirit tree, as that is when we will launch our attack. All right. Yuan accepted the token. The man left shortly after, while Yuan returned to his room to wait for the auction payout. A week passed in the blink of an eye, and during this time, several more individuals approached Yuan for his offer. In case the man lied about the location of the spirit tree, Yuan acted like the offer was still available to confirm the location. And out of the 8 people that approached him, 3 of them mentioned the burning tree, while the other 5 all gave him different locations. The burning tree, huh? Just wait a little longer, Zhao Hua. You're almost home. After a whole week had passed, Yuan returned to the Chaos Auction House for the payout. So, do you have my money, or do I have to make a trip to the chaotic sect? Chen Cheng quickly responded. Rest assured, esteemed guest, you will receive your payment, regardless of your situation with the chaotic sect. We cannot steal your money or treasures at the auction house, or nobody would dare to trust us again. Please, follow me. Your money is stored in another room. Yuan nodded and followed Chen Cheng to a different room, where over a dozen large chests were gathered. The money is all here. You can count them, if you'd like. With a sweep of his divine sense, Yuan verified that the chests held all the money, but amidst the coins, something unusual stood out. A few of them had a subtle and unique aura hidden within them. This update is available on novifire.net. Thanks. Yuan pretended not to notice it and tossed all of the money into his spatial ring. Chapter 2198, Second Chaotic Heart. After storing the money, Yuan turned around and began walking toward the exit. Esteemed guest, it's not too late. Chen Cheng suddenly spoke, halting his movements. Yuan turned to face him and asked, "What are you talking about?" Chen Cheng sighed before elaborating. It's not too late to apologize to the chaotic sect, just like the gold coins. You should have more spirit stones in your possession, right? You can show your sincerity by offering some of them to the chaotic sect, and there's a good chance they'll forgive you. Yuan smiled and responded, You should really work at a different place. Someone like you does not belong in a place like the chaotic sect. Chen Cheng shook his head and said, I grew up in the chaotic sect. It's not a place I can leave whenever I feel like. Is that so? What a pity. As for apologizing to the chaotic sect, I'd rather they hunt me, said Yuan before walking out of the room. Shortly after Yuan left, Chen Cheng went to another room where the Chaos Elders were waiting. It's been done. He accepted all of the money without any issue, Chen Cheng informed them. Great job. Once we take care of him, I'll consider giving you a promotion, said the man. Chen Cheng didn't respond to that statement and silently bowed. Is there anything else I can do for you? No, we'll handle the rest, said the woman as she stood up with an excited smile on her face. It's time to hunt. Meanwhile, Yuan returned to the hotel and retrieved the coins that had a subtle aura hidden within them. Looks like a tracker. They'll probably attack once we leave this city, Yuan calmly remarked. So what are we going to do? Mu Shuelian asked. This doesn't change anything. We'll still head to the spirit tree. If they attack us, we'll just take care of them. If you'd rather not get involved, you can wait here. No thanks. If I stay behind, I might as well have never entered this place with you. She refused without hesitation. In that case, do whatever you want. It's not like I was going to ask you to help me anyway. I can deal with them myself. Then when are we going to leave? Mu Shuelian asked. In a few days, after I absorb all of the chaotic essence from the chaos coins, he calmly replied. Okay. Yuan stowed away the chaos coins with the aura and took out the untampered chaos coins from his spatial ring, piling them into a little mountain before him in the middle of the room. With this much chaotic essence, I can easily create another chaotic heart. Yuan thought to himself as he sat before the mountain of coins. Without hesitation, he began his cultivation. Over the next several days, Yuan's second cultivation, which had been stagnant at Chaotic Master since he left the primal expanse, soared towards the heavens. You have absorbed chaotic essence. You have absorbed enough chaotic essence for a breakthrough. You have reached early chaotic commander. You have absorbed enough chaotic essence for a breakthrough. You have reached intermediate chaotic king. You have absorbed enough chaotic essence to start forming your second chaotic heart. You have begun forming your second chaotic heart. You have absorbed enough chaotic essence for a breakthrough. You have reached perfect chaotic emperor. You have successfully formed your second chaotic heart. Your second chaotic heart has merged with your chaotic dragon core, drastically strengthening it. You have reached early chaotic overlord. By the time Yuan finished absorbing all of the chaotic essence, his cultivation reached early chaotic overlord, which was akin to a cultivator who had just entered bronze immortal. However, his prowess was obviously incomparably more powerful than that of a bronze immortal. If I had known how much these coins would benefit my cultivation, I would have sold a few more spirit stones. He sighed, seriously considering selling more spirit stones later. Mu Shuelian, who had witnessed everything, was left speechless. As an ordinary cultivator, she couldn't perceive Yuan's second cultivation, so to her eyes nothing had changed. Yet she could clearly feel that something about him was profoundly different. Shiva, who watched through Mu Shuelian, was also quite stunned to witness a human cultivating chaotic essence. A human possessing chaotic hearts, huh? That shouldn't be possible without a completed eternal constitution. How many secrets are contained within that body? Shiva thought to herself. As for the chaos coins, once Yuan absorbed all of their chaotic essence, they crumbled into nothingness, leaving behind only a mound of gray dust that resembled ashes. This also meant Yuan had obliterated billions worth of the chaotic sect's currency. If word of it ever spread, it would spark chaos across the region and send shockwaves through the world's financial balance. All right, I'm ready to leave the city, Yuan said. Mu Shuelian nodded, and together they departed not long after. Meanwhile, somewhere in the city, the Chaos Elders had been waiting for Yuan to finally leave the city. Get ready, he's finally on the move, the woman said to the man after noticing Yuan had left the city through the tracker. The man nodded before turning to face the others in the room. You guys ready? I was born ready. Finally, we can stretch our arms. I was beginning to die of boredom. Thus, the Chaos Elders, along with several members of the chaotic sect, began trailing Yuan through the tracker, yet they held back their assault choosing instead to wait until he had ventured far enough from the city. After days of aimless wandering, Yuan and Mu Shuelian finally stopped moving when several presences materialized out of thin air, closing in from every direction. Within moments, 5 figures surrounded them, each one emanating the oppressive aura of a god ascension expert. "About time you showed up. What took you so long?" Yuan spoke out loud as he faced the Chaos Elders. "So you knew," muttered the male Chaos Elder. Yuan retrieved one of the coins they used to track him and flicked it at him. Get full chapters from novelfire.net. How could I not when you made it so obvious? Chapter 299, Confronting the Chaos Elders. So you knew we were tracking you, yet you still decided to leave the city alone. I can't even imagine what's going through that mind of yours, remarked the female Chaos Elder, her tone full of mockery. It's nothing complicated. There's just no reason for me to worry. After all, you're not a threat to me, Yuan calmly responded, still trying to act tough. Not only are you just an immortal, but we outnumber you. Yuan chuckled. So what? You may be God Ascension cultivators, but you only have slightly more spiritual energy than I do. Right now, you're no different from mere immortals. This little bastard is very talkative, mumbled one of the other cultivators. Elder Pan, can we kill them already? Said another. The male Chaos Elder, surnamed Pan, glared coldly at Yuan as he spoke. I don't know what hole a bastard like you crawled out from, nor what background you have, but no one who insults the chaotic sect walks away unscathed. Still, being the generous man that I am, I'll grant you one final chance. Be a good boy and hand over everything in your possession, and I will grant you a swift and painless death. Yuan smiled and replied, If you want my stuff, you'll have to work for it. However, the results might not be what you're expecting. What a pointless struggle. If you want to die a horrible death, allow me to help you. One of the experts suddenly lunged at Yuan with a divine-grade spear in his grasp. Yuan didn't even bother dodging the attack and stood still as the spear struck his chest. What? To the wielder's shock, the spear slammed into Yuan and stopped dead, unable to push forward. In the midst of the wielder's shock, Yuan grabbed the spear and casually yanked it from his grasp. This is how you use a spear. Yuan surged with chaotic essence as he lunged the spear, the thrust detonating with cataclysmic force, splitting the air in a deafening boom and rending open the very fabric of space as it hurled at the shocked expert. What are you doing? Dodge it? The spear expert snapped out of his daze at the sound of Elder Pan's voice, and he hastily summoned his spiritual energy in an attempt to block the incoming strike. However, due to their environment that forced everyone to be mindful of their spiritual energy usage, the expert subconsciously held back the amount of spiritual energy he used. Due to this mistake, the spear ripped through his spiritual energy like paper before carving a gaping hole through his body. That being said, even if the expert had used all of his spiritual energy to defend, it wouldn't have been enough to block the strike before the spear expert could recover. Yuan closed the gap and flicked his arm that was surging with supreme sword aura, striking the man's head and sending it spinning skyward. This spirit fears the lack that powers melfire.net. With his physical body destroyed, the man immediately tried to flee with his soul. However, Yuan extended his arm in the direction the man was fleeing and mumbled, Shiva's eternal frost. In the next instant, the temperature plummeted as if they'd been thrust into the 9th region of white hell, and everything within 10,000 miles was sealed in ice. The other 4 cultivators did not freeze outright, yet they felt their blood beginning to solidify. The fleeing soul, however, was sealed entirely, entombed in eternal frost. That bastard's using my powers, Shiva exclaimed inwardly after witnessing the scene. Though the power itself was pitifully weak, it was not something mortals could wield, making Yuan's ability to unleash it a feat in its own right. Meanwhile, Yuan was surprised by how demanding the technique was. A single strike had emptied his reserves in an instant, and that was only enough to allow him to barely activate it. Fortunately, his energy recovered just as swiftly. As expected, a technique that surpasses human limits is quite demanding. Yuan smiled inwardly. Instead of disappointment, excitement stirred within him at the thought of the day he could wield Shiva's power to its fullest potential. Yuan's gaze swept over the remaining four, his eyes like ice, as he murmured, "One down, 4 to go, Elder Pan," and the others trembled, not from Yuan's overwhelming might, but from the unfathomable aura that still lingered from Shiva's eternal frost. "What's wrong? Don't tell me you've lost all will to fight this quickly." Yuan's words jolted them from their daze. Elder Pan barked, "Fool! You may have slain one of us, but that technique must have drained nearly all your energy." Yuan only smiled. "You're not wrong, but unlike you, I can simply replenish it whenever I wish. You're really stupid if you think that bluff would." Suddenly, one of the cultivators vanished from sight and reappeared behind Yuan, his saber already cleaving toward Yuan's neck. This time, Yuan did not stand idle. He lifted his arm and caught the incoming saber between two fingers, stopping it cold in an instant. "You feeling cold? Let me warm you up a bit," Yuan murmured, unleashing the primordial fire, flames so searing they twisted the very air as they consumed the man.
Ah!
The man's screams tore through the sky as he plummeted to the ground, thrashing desperately in a futile attempt to smother the flames. But the primordial fire would not relent, and it devoured him piece by piece until only his soul remained. Once again, the cultivator attempted to flee with his soul. "You think you can strike at me and leave as you please?" Yuan sneered, summoning the primordial fire once more. Flames engulfed the man's soul, and since it was far more durable than flesh, the fire gnawed at it slowly, ringing screams of unending agony. Yuan didn't bother waiting for the primordial fire to finish devouring the soul. Instead, he turned his gaze upon the remaining three, their faces ashen as though they had just seen a ghost. "Not looking so confident anymore, huh?" Yuan remarked with a cold smile, chapter 2200 confronting the Chaos Elders. Damn it. What kind of mess did you drag me into, Elder Pan? Elder Z, you offended a monster. The third cultivator shouted at the Chaos Elders, It wasn't supposed to be like this." Elder Z murmured, her dazed eyes clouded with disbelief, struggling to accept the reality before her. "Let's talk about this," Elder Pan suddenly said. "If you agree to stop here, we'll overlook the fact that you killed 2 of our members and act like we don't even know each other. And if I refuse?" Yuan asked just for the entertainment. "Then you'll be hunted by the entire chaotic sect. If I kill all of you right here, would the chaotic sect even know who I am?" "They will, after all. We wouldn't be here if we didn't receive the chaotic sect's approval. In other words, they know who you are, and that if we don't return, you'll be the first one they suspect," Elder Pan said. "And what assurance do I have," Yuan asked, "that if I spare you now, you won't return with more to hunt me later? You can't blame me for not trusting you either." "That's Elder." Pan didn't know how to respond. No, it was more like he couldn't, as there was simply no way he would let Yuan go after this humiliation. Of course, Yuan already knew this, and he calmly declared, "I refuse your proposal. Now die for me." Yuan activated True Dragon Awakening, causing his aura to skyrocket. However, he didn't stop there and further strengthened himself with his second cultivation. "Screw this, I'm out of here," the third cultivator exclaimed, turning to flee without hesitation, abandoning the Chaos Elders. But before he could escape, Yuan summoned a wall of primordial fire, encasing them in a blazing sphere that sealed every path.
Why? We have no enmity, and I never even raised a hand against you.
The cultivator cried, his voice breaking as Yuan barred his path. "You're right. Which is precisely why you're still alive. Stay there and don't lift a single finger until I tell you to do so if you want to live. I'll be with you shortly after I deal with these 2, said Yuan before turning to look at the Chaos Elders, who were clearly panicking and trembling in fear. "Wait, please. Calm down. We were wrong. Okay? Have mercy. Elder Z, the female Chaos Elder, pleaded with teary eyes. Yuan coldly sneered, untouched by her tears. Would you have spared me if you were in my shoes? Probably not. But as Elder Z opened her mouth, Yuan drew number 1 under heaven and unleashed a swift, devastating strike. A flash of golden sword light filled her eyes, and in the next heartbeat, his supreme sword aura cleaved her body and soul clean in 2 Elder. Pan stared at Elder Z's split corpse with a terrified expression. He couldn't even begin to fathom how an immortal could kill a God Ascension cultivator with such ease. Even if they weren't as powerful as God Ascension cultivators in the 9 heavens, they're still beings that cannot be touched by mere immortals. Was it worth it? Yuan suddenly asked. What? Elder Pan muttered. If you think about it, things ended up like this because you couldn't wait a few days. Try to be a little more patient in your next life, all right? Elder Pan trembled at Yuan's words. Then, after a tense silence, his face flushed red as he roared, If you think I'll go down without a fight, you're... However, Yuan didn't even give him the chance to finish his sentence and swung his sword that was wreathed in a golden aura. In an instant, Elder Pan's entire being was erased from existence. Yuan turned to look at the remaining cultivator afterward and spoke in a nonchalant voice. Do you want to live? The cultivator, too terrified to speak, could only silently nod his head. Bring me to the burning tree within the land of Inferno, and I'll let you live. The burning tree, you might as well just kill me now. There's no way we'll get there alive. Even if we do, we won't make it back, he said. If you're worried about the Asura clan attacking us, rest assured they won't, Yuan said calmly. The cultivator frowned and asked, Why are you so certain? Are you tied to the Asura clan? No, if you were, you wouldn't need me to lead you there. Stop asking so many questions. Don't forget your place. If you're no use, say so, and I'll cut you down immediately. Yuan's voice was flat and cold. The cultivator gritted his teeth, fists white with tension. After a moment of silence, he loosened his fists and murmured, Fine, I'll take you to the burning tree. Good, then let us be on our way. Yuan said. The cultivator sighed as though surrendering to fate, and started flying south. So, how are you related to the elders, and how did you end up in this situation? Yuan questioned as they traveled. This chapter is updated by novelfire.net. There are 24 elders at the chaotic sect. Well, 20 now since you just killed 4 of them. We were ordered by the sect leader to take care of the insolent bastard who dared to insult and look down on our sect. In other words, I'm just following orders. If that's true, you're truly unlucky. Yuan shook his head, but he did not feel pity. He continued, Is the chaotic sect always like this? Pretty much, we do not tolerate anyone who disrespects us. I'm surprised you guys survived this long with that kind of mentality. It's because we don't let people look down on us that we've survived this long. As long as we don't mess with the Asura clan, we won't go anywhere, if you say so. A few days later, we've just entered the Inferno alchemist's territory, said the cultivator. How long until we reach the burning tree? Yuan asked. If nothing goes wrong, we should arrive in a week, he said. Very well. Yuan nodded. Chapter 2201, Inferno Alchemists. 3 days had passed since they entered the land of Inferno. Yuan suddenly noticed the cultivator's pace quickening, as though impatience or something else was driving him forward. Is there something wrong? Yuan asked him.
What?
The cultivator muttered as he turned to face Yuan, looking startled by the question. You're speeding up, almost like you cannot wait to arrive at our destination. Isn't that obvious? The faster we reach our destination, the faster I get to go home, he said. Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly and spoke. What are you hiding? It'd be in your best interest to tell me the truth before you do something stupid. I'm not hiding anything, the cultivator snapped, his tone firm, but the flicker of nervousness in his eyes betrayed him. Yuan fell silent for a moment before speaking again. Let's see, what are the chances that, instead of taking me to the burning tree like I told you, you're actually bringing me to another location? The cultivator's body twitched at his words. Seeing his reaction, Yuan continued with a cold smile. What if you're actually taking me to the chaotic sect instead? That's nonsense. You're just making shit up. The cultivator came to a halt and shouted with a flushed face. If you want to kill me, just do it. There's no need for you to make excuses. Yuan then said, You know what? I don't trust you, but I'll still give you the benefit of the doubt. However, I must warn you, if you're actually taking me to the chaotic sect, things won't play out like you're hoping, and you'll be the reason for their destruction. The cultivator didn't immediately respond, and after a moment of silence, he continued flying without a word. Yuan also didn't say anything and continued to follow him. Several days later, Yuan remarked, According to you, we should have arrived at the burning tree by now. I accidentally took the wrong turn. We should arrive at our destination in 5 days. I apologize for the inconvenience, he said. Is that so? Be more careful this time? Yuan didn't pursue the matter and patiently waited. After another 2 days, they came to a halt when an individual wearing red and gold robes blocked their path. You're not allowed to go any further unless you want to offend the Asura clan. Turn around and leave, said the man who was clearly from the Inferno alchemists. Unfortunately, I cannot do that, as I have some business with the Asura clan, said Yuan. The alchemist immediately frowned at his words and replied, The Asura clan? Who are you? And what is your relationship with them? We're something like friends, I guess. The alchemist stared at Yuan with wide eyes filled with disbelief before he suddenly burst out laughing. Friends? Surely you must have a better lie than that. The Asura clan has no friends. Who are you to claim they have no friends? Are you that close with the Asura clan? Yuan questioned, which instantly halted the alchemist's laughter. If you claim to be his friend, what is your name? We'll ask the Asura clan about you, and if you turn out to be lying, tell them Tian Shen is here to see them. If I am lying, you can turn me into dog food or whatever you want, Yuan responded with a confident smile. Don't worry, I'll do just that. Until we can confirm your identity, you will have to stay with us at the Inferno Alchemists' headquarters. After all, we don't want you to run away after making such a bold claim. How long will this take? Yuan asked. I don't know, since it's not like we can contact the Asura clan as we please. After a moment of silence, Yuan nodded. All right. Although he didn't say it out loud, he decided to give them a month at most. If they couldn't contact the Asura clan by then, he would head to the burning tree by force. What about me? I have brought you to your destination, so, the cultivator from the chaotic sect said. Yuan silently glared at him for a moment before responding, Yes, as promised, you're free to go. Thank you. Without hesitation, the cultivator immediately turned around and began fleeing like his life depended on it. The source of this content is novifire.net. Even as he put distance between them, Yuan's voice trailed after him. When you return, try to convince the chaotic sect not to seek revenge. You wouldn't want to squander the second life I gave you, do you? What was that about? Asked the alchemist. Oh, don't worry about him. He was just a guide. Whatever. Follow me, Yuan nodded, and he and Mu Shuelian followed the alchemist back to the Inferno Alchemists' headquarters. A day later, they arrived at the Inferno Alchemists' headquarters, a place built like a sect, but on a much smaller scale. When they arrived, the alchemist brought Yuan to a guest house before leaving to report the situation to his superiors. Of course, he didn't leave Yuan and Mu Shuelian unsupervised and had several people guard their place. What? A friend of the Asura clan? What nonsense is that? The elders almost couldn't believe their ears and were very dismissive about the situation. They're definitely just some troublemaker trying to reach the spirit tree. Fools like them occasionally show up, right? Just kill them and save the trouble. We cannot bother the Asura clan over such insignificant issues. However, the alchemist who brought Yuan to their headquarters said, That's what I thought at first, too. But he's unlike the others. There's something different about him, and he's strangely confident. Otherwise, he wouldn't have followed me back here. What if he's telling the truth? If we act too prematurely without even investigating a little and accidentally kill someone close to the Asura clan, wouldn't that spell the end of our faction? The elders found logic behind the alchemist's words, and the room quickly fell silent as they pondered their situation more seriously. Chapter 2002-02, The Chaotic Sect's Response. What Alchemist Shen said is logical. If those two are truly connected to the Asura clan in some way, and we kill them, it'd spell the end of our faction, one of the elders said, breaking the silence. Then what should we do with them? The chances of them being friends with the Asura clan are slim to none, and if we bother the Asura clan, it might affect our relationship with them, said another elder. Why don't we hold off on contacting the Asura clan and examine them for a little while before we make any decision? That's a good idea. We can just stall this for a little. If they turn out to be troublemakers, we'll kill them. Though the Inferno Alchemist's stance might seem excessive, it revealed the depth of their fear toward the Asura clan. In the primordial realm, even something as simple as approaching them to confirm an identity was anything but simple. I'll let them know, said Alchemist Shen, who guided Yuan and Mu Shuilian to their headquarters. While the elders continued to contemplate the situation some more, Alchemist Shen returned to Yuan's guest house. We will be sending someone to the Asura clan to confirm your identity soon, Alchemist Shen said to Yuan. So how long is this going to take? I'm not sure, but we'll let you know immediately when we receive an answer. Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly and said, There's no way it should take more than a few hours, a few days at most. Don't you have something to contact them directly? Alchemist Shen looked at him with a dumbfounded face and said, Only our leader has direct communication with the Asura clan, but even then, he can only use it during emergencies. Yuan sighed out loud. Why are they so hard to contact? Alchemist Shen remained silent. In any case, we just need to wait, right? All right, but don't take too long. Thank you for your understanding. Meanwhile, at the Chaotic Sect, the cultivator who managed to survive revealed the situation to the sect leader and other elders. What did you say? A mere true immortal killed 4 god ascension cultivators? Do you really expect me to believe that? The leader of the Chaotic Sect angrily shouted after receiving this news from the sole survivor. I swear on my soul it's true. The room fell silent for a moment. Sect leader Zhu, we must avenge Elder Z and the others. One of the elders suddenly exclaimed, How dare that bastard kill people from our Chaotic Sect? Our elders, no less. Hearing that they wanted revenge, the cultivator quickly said, No, we shouldn't. Everyone in the room turned to look at the cultivator with deep frowns on their faces. Elder Jiang, what are you saying? Are you telling us not to avenge Elder Ze and the others? Are you out of your damn mind? Did you get brainwashed by that bastard or something, Elder Jiang? You don't understand. That guy wasn't human. He killed everyone in the blink of an eye, and he did so with immense ease. He might also have connections with the Asura clan. Elder Jiang exclaimed, the Asura clan. The atmosphere in the room instantly changed at the mere mention of the Asura clan. Google v3lotfiro.net. Elder Jiang. The sect leader suddenly spoke in a chilling tone, causing him to tremble. Putting the issue with the Asura clan aside, are you claiming that a single immortal is stronger than the entire chaotic sect, so we should not offend him? That's Elder Jiang could not find a proper response. After a moment of silence, he shook his head and responded, No, unless he's as powerful as the head of the Asura clan, there's no way a single person could threaten our chaotic sect. I apologize. It seems I haven't been thinking straight from fear. Very well. Now, let's get back to the other subject. You said he has a connection with the Asura clan. How certain are you on that? Honestly, I'm not very certain. He had me bring him to the burning tree. If he truly had a connection with the Asura clan, he wouldn't need me to take him there. However, there's something about him that reminds me of those from the Asura clan. The sect leader stood up and said, Regardless of whether he's related to the Asura clan or not, I will not let someone who killed 4 of our people get away with it. Gather all of the elders. We're going to avenge the others, as you command. A week later, at the Inferno Alchemists' headquarters, Master, we have an emergency. The chaotic sect's leader and many of their members are currently at our gates. The chaotic sect? What do they want from us? The leader of the Inferno Alchemist was immediately alarmed by this news. They're demanding your presence, and that's all we know. What a bunch of arrogant bastards. Are they trying to start a war with us or something? The leader of the Inferno Alchemist went to meet with the chaotic sect shortly after. Sect leader Zhu, what is the meaning of this, to show up unannounced with so many of your elders? Are you trying to invade us? Do you not fear the Asura clan? Sect leader Zhu quickly responded, Don't worry, Leader Yang. We have no business with the Inferno Alchemists today. We're here for that bastard who came to your place recently, the one who's trying to go to the burning tree. Is he still here? Leader Yang responded, Yes, he's still here. Why are you looking for him? That bastard killed 4 of our elders, and we're here to make him pay for his crimes. What? Leader Yang wore a dumbfounded look on his face as he was fed this information. Are you sure you have the right person? That man is only a true immortal, and your elders are all at least God Ascension cultivators. Yet you claim he killed 4 of them? He asked. Chapter 2203, The Chaotic Sect's Revenge? I am aware of how ridiculous it sounds, but it is the truth, said Sect Leader Zhu. After a moment of silence, Leader Yang responded, I understand your situation. Unfortunately, I cannot just hand him over to you. Why are you protecting him? First of all, he is our guest. If we hand him over simply because you demand it, our reputation will be tarnished. Second, and more importantly, that man may have ties to the Asura clan. I trust I don't need to spell out what that means, said Leader Yang. Ha ha ha. Sect Leader Zhu suddenly burst out laughing. Don't tell me that man actually managed to fool the Inferno Alchemists with such an obvious lie. Leader Yang narrowed his eyes slightly and replied, Are you saying that he's lying about being connected with the Asura clan? Do I really have to answer such an obvious question? Do you have any proof to back up your claim? Although we don't have proof that he's connected with the Asura clan, we also don't have evidence that he's lying to us. It's better to be safe than sorry proof. I don't need such a thing. Even an idiot can tell that he's lying. Then I may be an idiot. Can you enlighten me? Sect Leader Zhu fell silent, as he did not have a proper response. Enough of the chit-chat, regardless of whether he's related to the Asura clan or not. It's a fact that he killed 4 of my elders. This will be my last time asking. Will you hand him over to us or not? Sect Leader Zhu's aura suddenly started increasing. And what are you going to do if we refuse your demands? Attack us? Do you not fear the Asura clan's wrath? Don't worry, we won't harm the Inferno Alchemists. However, we will drag him back with us, even if we have to be a little forceful. Leader Yang fell silent. The Inferno Alchemists numbered barely 100. If the chaotic sect truly wished to annihilate them, resistance would be futile. However, due to their connection with the Asura clan, the chaotic sect wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Moreover, so long as no harm befell the Inferno Alchemists directly, the chaotic sect believed there was a good chance the Asura clan would overlook the matter. If we hand Tian Xian over to them, we would look like pushovers, and if he happened to really be connected to the Asura clan, we would have no excuse. However, if we refuse and they forcefully take him away, our reputation would still take a blow, but at least we can tell the Asura clan that we had no choice, since we're no match for the chaotic sect. After weighing the choices, Leader Yang gave his answer. My answer is no. We won't hand him over to you. If you want to take him, you'll have to do it with force. This way, the Inferno Alchemists wouldn't be held responsible for Yuan's death. This chapter is updated by Novel Fire. Netsect leader Zhu sneered before commanding the hundreds of disciples that came with him. You heard him. Search every nook and cranny and bring that bastard back to me. Yes, at his command. The chaotic sect's disciples invaded the Inferno Alchemists' territory to look for Yuan. Leader, what should we do? Are we really going to just stand here and let them invade our territory? Even if they're not here for us, they've crossed a line they shouldn't. The elders of the Inferno alchemists asked as they watched the sea of disciples fly past them. Leader Yang shook his head and said, "There's nothing we can do but let the Asura clan deal with them." He turned to glare at Sect Leader Zhu and spoke angrily. "You'll regret this, Sect Leader Zhu." In response, Sect Leader Zhu merely sneered with disdain. Meanwhile, Yuan stopped studying the Mystic Sword tablet and sighed out loud. "Looks like I have guests. Need my help?" Mu Shuelian asked as she watched him stand up and approach the exit. "I'll be fine." Stepping outside, Yuan spotted dozens of black-robed cultivators prowling the area, banging on doors as they wandered from house to house like a bunch of law enforcers looking for a fugitive. They sure brought a lot of trash. Yuan sighed. Hey, I think that's him," one of the disciples shouted when he saw Yuan. "You might be right, he matches the description." Yuan smiled and calmly spoke out loud. "If you're looking for the one who killed your elders, you've definitely found him. It's him. Someone let the elders know that we have found him." The disciples immediately surrounded Yuan and his building. Yuan swept the crowd with a mocking gaze. "Not a single god ascension among you, what do you expect to accomplish here? With our sect leader and most of the elders present, resistance would be pointless. Do the sensible thing and surrender yourself peacefully." Peace? You forfeited that option when you came here for revenge, even though I warned you, or did that one I spare not tell you not to come here? Shut up. Who do you think you are telling us what to do? Did you really expect us not to seek revenge after you killed 4 of our elders? One of them snarled, his tone full of killing intent. No, I figured you would come after me. However, I still held on to some hope. Anyway, let's kill some time before your elders arrive, shall we? Before the disciples could even react, Yuan struck first. With most of them being at the immortal realm, it took him little effort to cut them down. Of course, he didn't wield any weapon and used only his supreme sword aura in mere moments. Yuan reduced their numbers by half, staining the place with their blood. What a monster. How is he this powerful when we have the same cultivation? Fuck. I can see how he defeated our elders. Until they faced Yuan's overwhelming might firsthand, most of the disciples had doubted that he could have slain their elders. We must keep him here until the elders arrive at all costs. Chapter 2004, Unfathomable Killing Intent. Keep me here. A smile appeared on Yuan's face as he stopped his killing spree. I believe there is a misunderstanding. I have no intention of going anywhere, much less running away. Do you really believe you can defeat the chaotic sect by yourself? Our leader is at the 7th level of God Ascension Powerhouse. He's not someone you can even touch, let alone defeat. 7th level, huh? It might be a little difficult, but it's definitely doable. The disciples stared at him with stunned disbelief. After a moment of silence, they all burst out laughing. He really thinks he can defeat our sect leader. What a fool. Get full chapters from Novelfire. Net, that's already beyond foolishness. Meanwhile, at the sect leader's location. Sect leader, elders, we have found that bastard, declared the disciple who left to find them. Oh, take us there, right away. Sect leader Zhu and the elders hurried after the disciple to Yuan's guest house. What greeted them there left them stunned. The ground was strewn with the mutilated corpses of their disciples, blood soaking the earth in a grisly scene. Took you long enough, said Yuan, who was casually sitting by his doorstep. Impossible? He killed all of them in such a short time. The disciple who went to find the others was terrified. After all, it'd only been 10 minutes at most since he left. You bastard sect leader, Zhu growled through clenched teeth, fury blazing in his eyes. Not only did you kill 4 of our elders, but you also slaughtered dozens of our disciples now. You must be the sect leader, said Yuan, after noticing his cultivation at the 7th level of God Ascension. Didn't you get my warning? I warned you that if you came after me after I spared one of your elders, that I would kill all of you, right? Yuan's gaze shifted to Elder Jiang, whom he'd spared. "Who do you think you are to threaten my chaotic sect? Not even the Asura clan has threatened us." Sect leader Zhu roared. "And you killed 4 of our elders. Do you really expect us to sit back and pretend it never happened? Why are you making it sound like I killed your elders for no reason? In the first place, your elders tried to rob and kill me, something you approved of. Was it wrong for me to kill them? Am I not allowed to defend myself? You should count yourself lucky I didn't visit the chaotic sect to kill you. And yet here you are marching to my door. You must really have a death wish. Why are you making it sound like I killed your elders for no reason? In the first place, your elders tried to rob and kill me, something you approved of. Was it wrong for me to kill them? Am I not allowed to defend myself? You should count yourself lucky I didn't visit the chaotic sect to kill you. And yet here you are marching to my door. You must really have a death wish. Sect leader Zhu trembled, his blood boiling with rage. For millions of years, no one, not even the other powerhouses, had dared speak to him in such a manner. Yet now, a mere immortal stood before him, looking down on him as if he were nothing. A powerful aura erupted from sect leader Zhu, flooding the air with a torrent of killing intent. Sensing his killing intent, even his own disciples trembled in fear. Of all the foes Yuan had faced in this life, none radiated more killing intent than sect leader Zhu, a testament to the countless lives he had already taken. After countless eras, few cultivators from the primordial era still remained, and sect leader Zhu was one of the rare survivors. Thus it made sense for him to exude such killing intent. Look at you, paralyzed with fear from nothing more than my killing intent. Sect leader Zhu sneered, watching Yuan stand motionless, eyes slightly widened. A cold smile curved Yuan's lips. Fear? I'll admit your killing intent is impressive, but only in the eyes of ordinary people. Ha ha ha, still pretending to be tough, huh? Then how about this? Sect leader Zhu unleashed the full extent of his killing intent, so dense and potent that it began to take form in the air, a feat Yuan himself had displayed before, with this much killing intent filling the air. The disciples around him, including the elders, subconsciously started backing away. Channeling his killing intent, sect leader Zhu forged a spear of crimson and black, its tip leveled menacingly at Yuan. Let's see if you can still act so arrogantly after having a taste of my killing intent. Yuan watched calmly as the spear hurtled toward him, making no move to evade. It pierced straight through his body, yet left no wound. Unlike sword aura or spiritual energy, pure killing intent held no power to inflict physical harm despite its seemingly solid form, which was why it passed through him so effortlessly. Instead, killing intent assailed the mind. For those lacking mental strength or unaccustomed to its pressure, it could shatter their mind, leaving them a hollow shell, or worse, killing them outright. Sect leader Zhu and the others watched with smug expressions, waiting for Yuan to break into screams, yet that moment did not come. Yuan slowly closed his eyes, and at once the atmosphere shifted. A red aura seeped from his body, spreading through the air and draping the place in an ominous presence. What is this? The disciples' eyes widened as killing intent poured from Yuan's body, swelling with each passing moment until it rivaled sect leader Zhu's killing intent. But Yuan's killing intent did not stop. It surged higher and higher until it pierced the black sky. His eyes bled crimson, and behind him unfurled a pair of ominous wings seemingly wrought from blood itself. This is, sect leader. Zhu swallowed hard, his eyes wide with disbelief and horror. Yuan's killing intent didn't just eclipse his own. It devoured it, swallowing his aura whole. Despite the countless lives he had taken over tens of millions of years, sect leader Zhu could not even begin to fathom how many Yuan must have slain to cultivate such unfathomable killing intent. Meanwhile, not far from their location and hidden within its own dimension, a handsome, middle-aged man with sharp features suddenly opened his eyes, revealing irises of deep violet. This killing intent, he murmured, a flicker of nostalgia stirring within him. Chapter 2005, Fighting Sect Leader, Zhu. This killing intent, it feels familiar, the middle-aged man murmured as he rose to his feet, stepping onto the surface of a small, tranquil pond where he had been seated in meditation. After a moment of silence, he spoke in a slightly loud and clear voice, Xiao Meilin. In the next moment, a tall and beautiful woman with facial features similar to Xiao Hua, but much more mature, appeared before him like a ghost. "Is this about the killing intent?" she asked. He nodded. "Investigate it. Could it be him?" The man turned to look at a certain object in the distance and responded after a moment of pause. "It's a little earlier than anticipated, but it's possible." A broad and somewhat sadistic smile appeared on Xiao Meilin's face. "I'll be back," she said before vanishing like smoke. She disappeared the next instant back at the Inferno Alchemist's headquarters. Once Yuan's killing intent stopped increasing, he created a sword using it. "Do you dare to experience my killing intent?" Yuan asked in a provocative tone as he glared at sect leader Zhu. Sect leader Zhu hesitated. Meanwhile, his disciples were all shaking uncontrollably just from being in the presence of Yuan's killing intent. "What's with the hesitation? Don't tell me you're afraid." Yuan laughed, his voice dripping with mockery. "Do not underestimate me." Sect leader Zhu roared, taking Yuan's obvious bait as he flung his arms wide in a defiant, inviting gesture. Without a word, Yuan flicked his sleeve, launching the sword of killing intent straight into sect leader Zhu's chest. Sect leader, his disciples cried in alarm, their confidence in his strength wavering as worry clouded their eyes. In the next instant, sect leader Zhu's pupils blew wide, his eyes darkening until nearly black. He threw his head back and screamed in agony. "Ah!" An unfathomable surge of killing intent flooded into him, dragging his mind into a torrent of unending nightmares. "Sect leader. You bastard, what did you do to our sect leader? There's no way that was just your killing intent. He must have used some sort of technique." However, Yuan ignored them and continued watching sect leader Zhu writhe in pain. A minute later, blood trickled from sect leader Zhu's eyes. Moments after, it seeped from his ears, nose, and even his pores, until in the blink of an eye his entire body was drenched in crimson. Kill him. For more chapters Viset novel Fire Net. One of the elders suddenly pointed at Yuan and roared. Though fear gnawed at them, hundreds of disciples hurled themselves at Yuan, their own killing intent blazing. Yuan said nothing, and he simply awakened the true dragon within and advanced to meet them head-on, while sect leader Zhu battled Yuan's killing intent in the depths of his mind. His disciples clashed with Yuan in reality. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 10 minutes. It took sect leader Zhu 13 grueling minutes, but at last he broke free from Yuan's killing intent. Yet the reality that awaited him was not much better than the nightmares. Not only the ground, but even Yuan's guest house was drenched in blood, its walls adorned with severed limbs and spilled entrails. In the time it took sect leader Zhu to break out of Yuan's killing intent, Yuan had slaughtered half of his disciples. What is this?" he muttered, with a look of disbelief. Yuan shrugged. "Don't look at me. They attacked me first. You bastard!" Once sect leader Zhu snapped out of his daze and understood the situation more clearly, his body erupted with killing intent and spiritual energy. "I'll skin you alive!" Sect leader Zhu lunged at Yuan while wielding a mythic-grade spear. Yuan produced number 1 under heaven and enhanced himself with chaotic essence to confront the sect leader. A soul weapon? Sect leader Zhu almost couldn't believe his eyes when he saw Yuan's weapon, as there was no soul weapon in the primordial realm. At least, until today. In fact, mythic grade was the highest quality of treasure that could be found within the primordial realm. Sect leader Zhu was not only injured and drained from resisting Yuan's killing intent, but his weapon was also far inferior. His sole advantage lay in his cultivation at the 7th level of God Ascension, and if not for that, he would have already fallen to Yuan within 100 exchanges. There's no way. The watching disciples were struck speechless, their faces etched with disbelief. None of them could comprehend how their sect leader struggled against Yuan, a mere true immortal that he should have been able to crush with a flick of his finger. The elders eventually snapped out of their daze and shouted, We need to help the sect leader. Without hesitation, they joined the battle against Yuan. By the heavens, what am I watching right now? The alchemists watching from afar were utterly bewildered. Yuan's overwhelming prowess, effortlessly suppressing the chaotic sect alone, stirred memories of the Asura clan. Don't tell me he actually has connections to the Asura clan. Leader Yang swallowed nervously and couldn't help but feel relieved that they didn't act too hastily and try to kill Yuan. Not only would they have been slaughtered, but they would have also offended the Asura clan. This feeling? Leader Yang's brows shot up and he quickly turned away from the battle before him as he sensed a familiar presence suddenly approaching their direction at the speed of light. Before Leader Yang could even gather his thoughts, the owner of the presence appeared before the alchemists like a ghost, startling them. However, when they saw and recognized this person's beautiful face, they became even more terrified. You are Crimson Empress. We greet the Crimson Empress. Leader Yang and the alchemists instinctively bowed. Yet the woman gave them no notice, as though they didn't exist, and her gaze fixed solely on the two figures locked in battle nearby, or more specifically, the handsome man wielding a greatsword. Ah. The Crimson Empress suddenly released a euphoric moan at last. You've returned. Chapter 2006. The Crimson Empress's appearance. Do you recognize that man? Leader Yang asked Xiao Meilin after hearing her mumbling. However, she didn't respond, Senior Crimson Emperor. Without turning to look at him, Xiao Meilin's attention remained fixated on Yuan as she spoke in a chilling tone. You're disturbing a significant and special moment for me. If I hear another peep out of your mouth without my permission, I'll kill you. Though she exuded no killing intent, Xiao Meilin's words terrified Leader Yang and the other alchemists more than Yuan's killing intent, and they no longer dared to open their mouths, even going as far as to halt their breathing just in case that annoyed her. Meanwhile, Yuan continued to fight sect leader Zhu. Although the other disciples tried to help, the clash between the two of them was so intense that they couldn't even get close. As the battle dragged on, sect leader Zhu's confidence gave way to unease. Initially, he was unconcerned about failing to overpower Yuan outright, given that his 7th-level God Ascension cultivation guaranteed significantly greater spiritual energy reserves. Sooner or later, Yuan should have been exhausted. Yet the expected weakness never came. Instead, with every clash, Yuan seemed only to grow stronger. No, he's not getting stronger. I'm the one getting weaker. Sect leader Zhu cried inwardly, How? How the fuck does an immortal have this much spiritual energy? Or does he have a way to replenish his spiritual energy? Bastard, you must be secretly recovering your spiritual energy with spirit stones. How many do you actually possess? Sect leader Zhu roared, misunderstanding the situation. Since he couldn't sense chaotic essence, there was no way for him to realize that Yuan was recovering his spiritual energy with it. Spirit stones? A smile appeared on Yuan's face as he spoke. Even if I were using them, so what? Sect leader Zhu gritted his teeth and suddenly stopped attacking. Wait! Let's talk about this! What? Yuan raised an eyebrow. Think about it. Even if you're using spirit stones to recover, you can't have many left. Keep this up, and you'll inevitably run out of spirit stones and still die by my hands. So why waste them? If you agree to apologize and hand over every last stone, I'll spare your life and pretend as if none of this ever happened, Sect leader Zhu said with a confident smile. Think about it. Even if you're using spirit stones to recover, you can't have many left. Keep this up, and you'll inevitably run out of spirit stones and still die by my hands. So why waste them? If you agree to apologize and hand over every last stone, I'll spare your life and pretend as if none of this ever happened, Sect leader Zhu said with a confident smile. Yuan fell silent for a moment before bursting out with laughter. Run out of spirit stones? Why don't you see for yourself whether I'll run out or not? Yuan snapped open his spatial ring, releasing a flood of spirit stones that swiftly piled into a glittering mountain before him. The jaws of sect leader Zhu and the others dropped at the absurd, almost obscene sight. There were thousands, millions of spirit stones, enough to make everyone in the primordial realm a cultivator. Impossible. Why does he have so many spirit stones? They must be fake. There's no way he has so much. Suddenly, sect leader Zhu clenched his fists and muttered, There's been a rumor of someone from the outside world entering the primordial realm going around recently. I didn't believe it at first, but now you must be that person. What? He came from the outside world? Does that mean the primordial realm is open again? The disciples couldn't believe their ears, their eyes glued to the spirit stones. However, Yuan quickly stored the spirit stones back inside his spatial ring the next moment. Now then, let's see who falls first, you or I when I run out of spirit stones, Yuan said, his glare sharp as a blade. Sect leader Zhu trembled at the challenge. This Parter's yat is late, Rue, but But just as sect leader Zhu opened his mouth to respond, a surge of killing intent exploded nearby, crashing over the battlefield like a tidal wave before sect leader Zhu could even turn his head to face the source of the killing intent. It appeared behind him like a ghost, and pop, sect leader Zhu's head suddenly exploded like a juicy watermelon. Yuan's eyes widened at this sudden development. You are Crimson Empress? What is the meaning of this? Sect leader Zhu, whose head was crushed but still survived as a soul, exclaimed in shock after seeing the identity of his attacker. Why? Because you ruined such a precious moment for me? She responded in a nonchalant tone. What? What nonsense are you? Sect leader Zhu's words died in his throat as he felt her cold glare fall upon him. In that instant he was sure that if he dared to continue, she would shatter his soul. Crimson Empress, Yuan muttered, as he admired her beautiful and familiar appearance, recalling when Zhao Hua disguised herself as her in the past. Xiao Meilin stopped paying attention to sect leader Zhu without a second thought, turning instead to meet Yuan's gaze with eyes burning with passion. Yuan opened his mouth to speak, but before he could utter a word, Xiao Meilin suddenly charged forward and launched an attack on him. Her unexpected action left Leader Yang and sect leader Zhu speechless. She wasn't on his side, they cried inwardly. Since that bastard ruined it, allow me to continue it. Xiao Meilin muttered in a low voice as she retrieved a mythic-grade sword and swung it at Yuan. What are you doing? Yuan asked with a calm expression on his face as he blocked her attack. Despite being attacked, there was no killing intent coming from Xiao Meilin, so he wasn't worried that she was trying to kill him. Please excuse my behavior, Master Tian. However, I just cannot contain it any longer. A crushing pressure swept through the area as Xiao Meilin's body erupted with the aura of a 9th-level God Ascension cultivator intertwined with a surge of intense Supreme Sword aura. My love and lust for you, that is, she shouted as she continued her assault. Although Xiao Meilin did not seem to have any desire to kill him, Yuan didn't dare to underestimate her and instantly used Eternal Essence.